Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day number 1 of Raid Masters Naxxramas, brought to you by G-Loot, Warcraft Logs, and HyperX. My name is Esquire, joined here on the casting desk by the lovely Mr. GM and Sarth. What an exciting day it has already been. The European region has been done and dusted for today, day number 1, but we've yet to break into the North American region for the evening. And guys, it is going to be exciting. Mr. GM, Sarth, good to have you guys back. How are you doing, Mr. GM?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's what is it, midnight now, so we're ready to get into your time zone now. You done my time zone, now it's going into yours. But this is gonna be good though. I'm looking forward to it. You guys have hyped me up before all of this. You're like, right, the NA guys, this is gonna be huge, all that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys perform over the next couple hours.
Absolutely, it should be nothing short of exciting. Sarth, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to see these NA guys come up and represent. Really excited to see what Rise has up their sleeve in particular, because I think it's going to be one of those ones where we're going to be glued to the edge of our seats the whole time.
Yes, a very exciting night indeed in store for us, but not just tonight, my friends. Over the next 3 days, as well as the next 2 weeks in general, we're going to be pumping out the Raid Masters Naxxramas events. Make sure that you are following the Twitter. Make sure that you are following the Twitch at RaidMastersGG and twitch.tv/RaidMasters so that you do not miss any of the action happening over the course of the next few days and 2 weeks. Now, let's go ahead and break into the format for tonight. What are we going to be looking at as we go through the evening? Well, Naxxramas speedruns, of course. Every guild gets 2 attempts to try to put up the fastest time that they can get throughout the 2-week tournament. Quickest win, well, that's what's going to be in the money. But as far as the rules that govern this tournament, those have been established in accordance with the Warcraft Logs rules. No trash skips. You can use world buffs. The trash requirement is still going to be in place, where you have to meet a certain number of mobs, of specific mobs, to be able to qualify your run for a speed run. There's a plus 5 minute addition for any raiders that are going to be swapped in or swapped out, and then five flasks of petrification is the limit of use on that item. As far as the rest of the tournament, there is a lovely prize pool that these guilds are going to be competing for to try to take home the lion's share of it all. Place number 1, first place of the entirety of the tournament, is going to be walking away with $4,000, second place with $2,500, third place with a $2,000 prize pool, and then the winner of the opposing faction, the top time of the opposing faction of the actual winner, will be walking home with $1,500 as well. So many opportunities to win, but only one can claim that top first place prize at the end of these 2 weeks. A very exciting night ahead of us, gentlemen. Like we mentioned, we've got Rise and Turbo Bus that are going to be competing here tonight. The schedule for this evening, where those 2 guilds are going to be going essentially head-to-head in this speedrun tournament, is right in front of you. We've got the pre-show popping off now, where we'll take care of all of our laundry list items. We'll get to know you a little bit better. We'll introduce the teams, and not just the teams, we'll introduce the players as well. After the run, we'll look at a deep dive, well, a Sarth's deep dive into all of the analytics of the run itself, and kind of pick and pull at some of the different good and bad things that we saw throughout the Nax runs tonight. But guys, what an exciting night we have. I mean, Sarth, talk to me about what we can maybe expect to see from some of these guilds tonight, specifically Rise and Turbo Bus.
So tonight, earlier in the EU bout, we saw some of the techniques used for like the bigger brain pulls, or the bigger pulls, not bigger brain pulls, but like the Farolina Pool, where we saw a wipe earlier, the Gothic, where we saw a wipe earlier. Rise is definitely going to employ both of these. I would expect that Turbo Bus also does both of these. We're also going to see things like this here Stables pull that we saw earlier from Praxis, which was done really well. So we're definitely going to see Rise go in with the same thing like this. They will all use lips here so that nobody dies. Hopefully nobody dies, but we'll probably also see them do a few different things, especially earlier on. So earlier today, we did see a wipe come through as a paladin bubbled here on Gothic, and it made every single mob spawn, because when you do bubble, it basically acts like there's nobody on the live side. So then every mob spawn at once, and we saw the wipe go down, which beforehand was a pretty clean run. And then also we did see the Four Horsemen almost get a little bit out of hand here, which is something we're definitely going to see different if the guilds both actually still have world buffs. We're definitely going to see them cleave Four Horsemen. That's something we weren't able to watch earlier today, but the first two bosses of Four Horsemen should be cleaved down, and the fight should last less than half of the amount of time as it did earlier.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of one of the big things about the 2 runs earlier today. We didn't get to see a lot of the strategies that almost require you to have those buffs and everything popped and ready to go.
Yeah, that's one thing that even though some of the guilds like right here went for some of the pulls that we want to see or we should expect to see, they didn't actually all pan out the best way. This is probably the most disappointing thing that could happen in your speedruns. It's really unfortunate because you go towards the Spiderwing and Farolina right away. So within the first few minutes, you could easily see a wipe. And then this is actually something I forgot to even really notice, is that Praxis runs into Saffron's room and does the early pull of Saffron even without world buffs. And I actually had barely even noticed it. So this is a risky thing to do. They could have just actually waited, but instead they decided we're here, we're just going to go for it, and they actually pulled it off.
Yeah, it seemed like once that Gothic wipe happened for Praxis, you know, they went back into that Gothic attempt the exact same way. And you mentioned it, like, why are they doing this without world buffs? It seemed like they wiped, and then they said, listen, we got to practice for the next run. We can't be pulling off this. We just need to do what we came to do.
Yeah, they really pulled it together afterwards. They did have a little bit of struggle on Kel'thuzad, but that's something that can kind of be expected when you lose world buffs quite often. And they just actually put together a really good run, a really solid and clean run throughout the rest of the raid, other than the Kel'thuzad and a little bit of struggle on Saffron.
So some lovely replays from today's European region, part of the competition here for Raid Masters Naxxramas. But this topic at hand tonight, guys, the topic at hand is North America and what Rise and Turbo Bus are going to be able to do. Speaking of Rise, well, let's dive into some of the players specifically of Rise. We've got, I believe, who do we have? Yikes has a lovely interview prepared for us from Rise.
Hi guys, it's Yikes from Rise, from Netherwind. I've been playing with Rise since they started at Classic launch. I've started as a Paladin named Yikes, later renamed Yikes BTW and in World First. And then when BWO came out, I rerolled as a Rogue. My role is, I am currently a Raider rank. I've played in Raid 1, Raid 2, and Raid 3 for Rise. Sometimes I had to take up the mantle as an officer, but was never really promoted as an officer. However, I do have to deal with people from time to time and listen to them complain about loot. Guilds are amazing because you meet many great people. It's like playing a team. Like when you play football or soccer, being part of a guild is just like being in a team. You get to meet many great people. I've met many great people. They've taught me many things. It's definitely more than just playing the game. You form meaningful relationships and bonds that carry on throughout. I've actually have many phone numbers of many of my guildies, and we stay in touch from a day-to-day basis, and we keep in touch. The fun thing about speedruns is I could just blast Euro beats and just jam out to music, because it's insanely fun when you're going like super fast. It's like you're driving a car at 100 miles per hour and you think you're going to get a ticket, but you won't in these speedruns. The hardest competition, I think it's going to be Progress or Salad Bakers. I don't see any other NA guilds really being in the way. They just get lucky as an A, and we don't need luck to win. I do think we have a great chance of getting that fastest Naxxramas speed clear for Raidmasters.gg. All we gotta hope is that Salad Bakers chokes on Grabulus, you know, just step away from the slime, duh. Or if Progress chokes on Patchwork, like, come on, fix your Patchwork sets, take notes from It Was Easy. It Was Easy has the best Patchwork sets. Maybe you should send him a DM on Netherwind. This is going to be my last few raids with Rise, unfortunately, and the way I would keep myself motivated is not the loot chase. Sometimes you would need to use loot to fuel your passion to play, but what really keeps me playing are the people. When I play, I know that I'm doing a good impact on the people in the guild, and that my role serves a purpose. If I feel like that's slowly diminishing, then I feel like I have to slowly peel back. And unfortunately, I've been slowly starting to feel burnt out of just world buffing for weeks, being raid logged for weeks, and playing one character and I've slowly just wanted, and I've started to slowly pull back, and this is probably going to be my last raid with Rise. I'd like to make a shout out to everyone watching, Rise, Dread, Oro, especially you guys for hearing me out, for wanting to slowly pull back from the game. All the Raid 1 members, you're all great to me. All the Raid 2 members, Raid 3 especially too. All you guys were great to me. I appreciate being part of this interview. Thanks again, Rise, for the best experience I could ever have in a guild. Thank you, Dread, for being the best GM. And all the officers too. And Grad Central on Corrupted Ashbringer.
Hey, big shout out to Yikes for giving us that lovely interview and gracing us with our first banter. My friends, we have our first banter from this interview. That's kind of exciting. A few subtle shots thrown here and there. You want to be looking to see if those shots get returned at all. But hey, an interesting interview nonetheless. So guys,
he had a lot of sass. He had a lot of sass. I love his attitude. It's fantastic.
Yeah, keep that up. Keep that up. Definitely, Yikes. Absolutely. So, guys, let's take a look at the leaderboard tonight. Obviously, times will not be filled out, and one of the guilds will not be running this evening. Only 2 of the North American guilds run tonight, but we'll take a look at which guilds those are. And, of course, yes, Rise and Turbo Bus. You're going to be looking to see where those 2 squads, where those 2 guilds end up at the end of today when we come back to the leaderboard at the conclusion of the runs and see how they stacked up. But as we continue throughout the pre-show, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about one of the lovely focal points of this tournament. Well, that just so happens to be the raid itself. Naxxramas, one of the legendary WoW Classic vanilla raids, one raid that not many people got to experience, one raid that kind of lived in legend for a long time until we were able to revisit it here in Classic. Let's take a deep dive and look into what Naxxramas holds for this raiders.
Naxxramas, the giant floating necropolis which serves as the base of operations for one of the Lich King's most powerful officers and the final boss, Kel'thuzad. The guilds are tasked to defeat Kel'thuzad and the other 14 bosses in as quick of a time as possible to become the raid masters of Naxxramas. The raid is split up into 4 different wings: the Abomination Wing, the Death Knight Wing, also known as the Military Wing, the Plague Wing, and the Spiderwing, and each guild may choose their own order in which to deal with these. Starting with the Spiderwing, which is considered one of the easiest wings with some of the shortest boss fights in this raid. A Noob Recon is no challenge for these guilds, as his characteristic ability, Locust Swarm, is completely skipped and his adds are cleaved down on top of the boss right away. More interestingly is the Trash before Grand Widow Farolina, the second boss. This Trash is one of the most unforgiving and risky of the entire raid, and could cause the run to be over if failed, even though it's one of the first pulls of the dungeon. However, where we have seen different strategies being used to clear the room as quickly as possible, a notable pull will be most likely used that includes pulling over 110 mobs together, and with a coordinated use of sapper charges, they are instantly killed. Grand Widow Farolina is no challenge to these guilds, and they are more interested in bringing the boss to the exit of the room to move on than they are with any of the mechanics. Naxxramas is the last boss of this wing, but has the shortest fight duration of all the bosses in the raid, with a kill time of just over 30 seconds. We can expect the top guilds to use most of their damage cooldowns here, just to make sure that she dies before using Web Wrap, an ability that stuns the entire raid for 10 seconds while she keeps attacking the tank. Plague Wing is a very famous wing, as it persists of Hygen the Unclean, but before him is Noth the Plaguebringer, where players must be focused on dispelling the curse of the Plaguebringer before it causes an entire raid wipe. The next boss is Hygen, which is often associated with his dance mechanic, Eruption, which causes green goo to erupt from the floor, and the question is, are the guilds going to complete the famous safety dance of defeating the boss without losing any players, or will someone lose their step? While the wing may be one of the easier ones, the last boss, Lotheb, can be a threat to some guilds, and without great cooldown rotation from the tanks, and coordination from the healers to establish a healing rotation on the tank, as they will get a debuff that only allows them to cast one healing spell every minute, the raid will wipe. The raid itself relies on consumables to stay alive, as the healers are all focused on keeping the tank alive. Next up is the Death Nightwing, which consists of one of the harder bosses. The first boss, Instructor Resuvius, is one of the most punishing bosses in the game. He hits incredibly hard, and the raid relies on the priests to mind control the adds and use their abilities to tank the boss. But if a mind control drops for even a second, it could spell instant death for the highest threat member of the raid. The second boss is Gothic the Harvester, and this boss is no threat to these raids, so instead all of the top guilds have noticed that the gates of the boss's room actually don't stop enemies from passing through them. So speedruns will see hunters pulling trash in between Gothic and Four Horsemen to save time after the boss, and for something to do during the long phase 1 of this encounter. The last boss of this wing is no other than the Four Horsemen, a rather famous fight because of the fact that you are fighting 4 bosses and their individual proximity mark ability, which is increasingly deadly. It is important not to be greedy when it comes to this ability, and the guild's patience are tested here once again. But it is also during these times that small margins can be gained and perfectly timed calls can make a big difference. Lastly, we have the Abomination Wing. We meet Patchwork, who is known for hitting extremely hard and is a matter of being patient and letting between 2 and 4 tanks build threat before the raid starts attacking. But here, small margins can be gained through bravery or loss of world buffs through impatience. Next, we have Grabulus, one of the easier bosses in the raid, which some guilds pull simultaneously with trash to save time as he is patrolling around and standing in the way of some of the mobs. Moving on to Gloth the Dog. It is said he is being fed an army of zombies daily because of his appetite, but these guilds have so much damage that we won't get to see many of his abilities, nor his characteristic Decimate ability. More interestingly, however, is the pipe leading up to this boss, where we have seen some raiders slip and fall all the way to the start of the wing. Thaddeus, on the other hand, is a boss of coordination and is very unforgiving. A single player can cost the entire guild dearly by misplacing themselves after a polarity shift and causing a wipe. Once all wings have been cleared, the Frostwing layer opens and unlocks Sapphiron, a large threat to many guilds because of the boss's frost aura, dealing extremely high raid damage every other second and forcing the guilds to swap to their frost resistance gear. When the frozen dragon has been defeated, the guilds must take on the final boss, Kel'thuzad, the longest fight in this raid. While the first phase of this fight isn't something most guilds fear, it is when the boss starts to attack the raid himself that he becomes truly terrifying. With punishing mechanics that can instantly kill players, powerful minions that spawn, and a multi-target mind control that can cause unexpected deaths, perfecting this fight is a must to have a chance to become the raid masters.
Naxxramas truly is a fascinating raid, one that holds many challenges, but also a lot of excitement as well. And that's something that I think many of y'all in chat have come to find over the last 3 months or so in your own classic vanilla World of Warcraft experiences. But guys, back to the task at hand. Like we've already mentioned, today we had the European region compete. We had 2 guilds from that region go head-to-head today. Let's pull up the leaderboard and see how those guilds did in their respective times. Unfortunately, Old Praxis had a bit of a difficulty in their first run of the tournament, but that's okay. You've got 2 shots, so write this one off and get back swinging when your next run is up. 1 hour and 39 minutes and 16.9 seconds is where they landed. Scripted, another European guild that ran today. Their time has not yet been logged yet. However, that should be updated within a few minutes or within the hour or so. So be on the lookout on the website for Raid Masters to see when that updates. But hey, guys, I mean, let's talk about this as far as the guilds coming up tonight. You know, I think the big theme of the day, which is sort of surprising, I think it caught a lot of us off guard. The big theme of today was small mistakes costing these guilds big. Small mistakes, big costs. Let's talk about how that transitions into this evening with our two North American guilds. How are Rise and how are Turbobus going to tackle the difficulties that we've already seen guilds faced with earlier kind of have some issues with, and where might we see those first big issues arise, Sarth?
I think Rise in particular, maybe Turbobus, are going to pull something a little bit more risky at the beginning of the raid. Something we didn't see in either of the two early bouts is going to be most likely a larger pull before Anubrakan, the first boss. Rise will most likely be going into Plague Quarter initially with most of their raid, while a Paladin and a Hunter set up the other pull going on. So this is the first thing that can be a little bit risky, mainly because the best way to deal with this is using AoE taunt rotations along with shield wall, because sometimes you might not be able to use your potion cooldowns here, or if they do have it with lips. But the taunt rotations have to be good, or else if like the taunts drop for 1 second, somebody's gonna die. And if you lose your mages or a warrior, God forbid, early on the very first pull, then this is gonna slow down your overall time. And as we saw earlier, as people die, it just gets a compound interest of time, and it just is really, really scary. So Spiderwing is one of the wings where we can see the shortest amount of time being spent, sometimes even like 7 minutes for guilds to clear the whole wing with other pulls. But it is also one of the riskier wings, and it's kind of a nail biter. So I'm really excited to see how these two guilds do there.
It certainly is. I mean, also not just the early parts, but the later parts where we didn't really get to see some of those strategies be employed. Sarth, you talked about it with Four Horsemen. I mean, there are several ways to do Four Horsemen. Do you think we're going to see something kind of crazy here? Do you think we're going to see something a little bit different from what we saw in the European guild region?
Absolutely. If both of the guilds have world buffs, then both of these guilds will 100% cleave Four Horsemen. The first two bosses, you will cleave them down at the exact same time. You can generally, the fastest Four Horsemen in the world usually would be every single person in the raid opens up with their very first attack or their first global on Zaliek, which is the Four Horsemen that we saw die last in the earlier runs. They will open on Zaliek and then swap to the two that they're cleaving down. First, you push the first one to his shield wall, and then you swap your main prio or your target while you're still cleaving to the next Four Horsemen, Mograine. So you're fighting down Thane and Mograine, and then you just bring both of those down before you have to move, and then go on to Blue Mao, and all of your ranged or your mages and such can go over to Zaliek. But an interesting thing for these two guilds is what the composition, especially for Rise, seems to be running very few rogues and very heavy on the warriors, even more so than we see in most compositions. And on Four Horsemen, that means we're going to see 4 warriors, including the tank, go straight off the back onto Zaliek, potentially 3, because sometimes 4 can be overkill if they have their biggest DPS dealing warriors, and they will save recklessness for this encounter as well.
Yeah, I mean, that should be interesting. Hopefully we get to see it. Hopefully these guilds can keep it intact until they get to that point. Over to you, Mr. GM. You know, how do these guilds, okay, so we talked about how we saw the guilds earlier perform, as far as their standards are concerned, I think a little bit suboptimally. But you've got Rise, you've got Turbobus. Surely they've been watching. Surely they've been seeing how the guilds earlier today performed. How do you think that impacts their mindsets going into this, as far as, you know, egos are concerned, as far as confidence is concerned?
Man, I mean, like, you know, you could see kind of the confidence in Yikes there, right? When with the interview, right, with his little bit of sass and just a little bit of, you know, confidence there. I mean, the thing is with Rise, they are the 5th in the world, right? And 5th in the world means they are what, 3 minutes behind the number 1, and that time was recorded on the 9th, so that would be yesterday, right, or like a day or so before. So yeah, they got a good reason to be confident about it. Turbobus, however, are 42 in the world, but their time is still like an hour and 9 minutes, right? Versus what, like 54? So, you know, just over 10, well, just over the like 15 minutes or so just behind them. Like, it's all to play for. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tonight. for sure. I mean, I'm looking at the composition, right, of the two guilds as well, and as Saf said, like with Rise, like one rogue they ran the other day, like crazy, versus like the composition of Turbo Bus. They've got, I think 5 rogues, and then they've even got a Shadow Priest in there. How about that? That's exciting. I do love a Shadow Priest. I play the Shadow Priest in Classic, funnily enough, so I'll be looking forward to hopefully seeing that in there, seeing, at the top of the meters, of course. And so I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good for sure.
Yeah, certainly the compositions that these teams have been bringing into not just the speed runs here in this tournament, but speed runs in general. It's been kind of interesting to see how they've developed over the last, over a year and a half now, whether it be Molten Core all the way until the current tier here in Naxxramas, how these comps have evolved. I mean, Sarth, can you maybe shed some light as to why these guilds might be favoring the melee a lot heavier than casters? I mean, listen, as a mage myself, I see 4, maybe 5 max mages in a speed run, and it saddens me a little bit based off of how many warriors they have.
The biggest thing in World of Warcraft Classic, I think, is definitely world buffs. Warriors scale better with world buffs than anything in the entire game. Also, there's no downtime whatsoever with bringing all warriors, because you can just intercept or charge into the next group and just everyone DPSs. Warriors output the most damage, and they can also take the most damage because they have the most health. So it's kind of the most versatile and ideal composition for speedruns. Looking forward towards like TBC, warlocks become a lot more powerful than warriors, and the fights aren't very friendly to melee. But in all of Classic, the fights are extremely friendly to melee. There's never really a fight that, other than potentially maybe Saf or Onyxia, where they're up in the air for a little while, which we mentioned earlier in the EU bout. But other than that, pretty much everything is extremely friendly to melee, and warriors can also cleave. So very quickly, everything will just die and they never have to stop. And that's kind of the idea here, is just continued pacing. Every class that they bring, especially in the top speedruns, has their exact goal. Bringing 1 druid is just there for Fairy Fire. Earlier we saw 2. Turbo Bus actually has run 3 warlocks in their most recent speed run, and usually you'll only see 2 of those. They're pretty much there for Curse of Recklessness and Elements, so pretty much to make sure your warriors do more DPS and to make sure your mages do more DPS. And the mage group is there for the huge ignites and big AoE pulls. So classes are very specialized in Classic, but they have their job, and that's what they're exactly good at, and you focus on bringing as many as possible. But a lot of times we will see guilds bring more rogues than others. One noteworthy that's not in the competition, but Progress usually brings 4 rogues in their rogue core, and that's more so because they're bringing the player, not the class, and their rogue core just happens to be one of the most solid rogue cores in the world by far. So as we move forward, a lot of times people will transition over to the warrior class because it is the king of Classic and it's kind of can't really be disputed. But every class does have its role. Hunters are extremely crucial. You only need 1, but its whole job is to pull for the entire raid. And if the hunter fails, you're screwed. Paladins and shamans are the best healers. Of course, priests as well, but their paladins and shamans are just so essential. And the druid has its job of Fairy Fire, the warlocks for curses. So you kind of, in these speedruns, you go for exactly what's optimal, exactly what can save the most time at all times.
And to bounce off of that, I guess, Mr. GM, are we at optimal yet? Do you think that, we're in phase 6 of Classic Vanilla, TBC is on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
We'll surely revisit Classic Vanilla again sometime in the future. Do you think there's still room to develop that meta even further beyond what it is currently at here in phase 6?
I don't know. One thing that was interesting that came out of BlizzCon Online was they were kind of toying with the fact or the idea of making some changes to Classic in the future, to Classic era realms. So that could potentially swing some metas for sure. We're seeing the removal of batching pretty soon as well. So be interesting to see. There was also a poll recently talking about Classic Plus, which was kind of interesting. So I don't know if that's something else they're thinking about, and that again would change the whole meta. So time will tell for sure, right? And I am very curious to see where this sort of if there still will be Nax speedrunning or any sort of speedrunning in Classic still beyond TBC Classic. I guess it all depends like how many people decide to fully, commit to moving on into the next expansion or using that clone system that they mentioned about like keeping a character in Classic and keeping his character in Burning Crusade. So I think we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. Sorry, I just remembered us talking about the batching changes when Mr. GM brought that up.
Yep.
Now you talked about how batching kind of, it benefits warriors as far as the execution, the rage generation. As a mage, we can't drink walk as easily when batching gets fixed.
That's true. I forgot about that. That is a thing.
Yeah, so it seems like, although melee might be pumping a little bit harder, warriors rather might be pumping a little bit harder when batching changes. Casters, because it's not just mages that use drink walking as a technique to get mana back while you're on the move, which is pretty significant in these speed runs. It's it's going to be across the board. A bit more of a time requirement for these casters to try to get that mana back, or you just have to be a little bit more, sparing with how you spend that mana itself. But ladies and gentlemen, it looks like our first run of the evening here for the North American segment of Raidmasters Naxxramas is about to kick off, and it is Rise who is prepped and ready at the wing. I'm going to kick it over to you guys. Sorry, the Mr. GM, take it away.
All right, welcome to some actual gameplay, guys. We are here with our first night of the NA raiding. You can see the guys here at Rise are getting ready for their speedrun right now. The UI will be coming up, guys, with the timer and whatnot very, very shortly, so do not worry about that. What are we looking at then, Sarves?
So just like I talked about earlier, they are looking to go into the Plague Wing first, which is usually what we're seeing in these top speedruns, which, like I mentioned in the EU bout, they can pull that skull target right there with the first two pulls. That skull target is not scary, and then they'll probably have their hunter or hunter pet go in and pull the next target as well, which will be the two gargoyles that do poison damage, while they have a paladin or someone else setting up their spider pull. They might end up just going into Plague Wing. We have seen that from some of the top guilds this week, but most likely they will set up this pull. They're basically waiting for the pat to be in the right position, and then they will go back into Spiderwing. So let's see how they play this. Also, their composition is the same as we saw last time. They have a hunter, just one hunter, and two rogues. One rogue for exposed armor, and the other rogue is just a pumper.
Just a pumper. Love that.
Yeah, and you can actually see that they bopped at least one of their mages here. So the mage that we're watching, they have actually put Blessing of Protection on him, and there's 2 deaths already.
Oh no.
Oh my. That is just very unfortunate. Slams a warrior and fathers also warrior. I'm not sure, I'd have to check. But Slams is down. That's losing a melee DPS this early is a huge time loss for overall.
Yeah, Slams is warrior, and what did you say? Fathers. He is not. Can't find it. Unless I'm being blind, but yeah, I can't see it.
Yeah, Father's Belt, another warrior. So they've already lost 2 warriors, which is really unfortunate because obviously losing your melee this early is going to cut down on a lot of time. We're actually going to see they do have pretty much everyone here except for, nope, the hunter, I believe, has already ran off. So we're going to see if they decide to keep going down this path and move on, or if they're going to go, turning around to go towards Spiderwing. Using speed use items, so we can see people using things like Goblin Rocket Boots, Speed Boots. They're not using potions here, and that will be coordinated really well because they need their potion cooldown right here for these golems. They need free action potions so they don't get stunned just like that just happened. So free action potions, and they want to kill these golems before they can really do a cleave, because all 4 of them can do a cleave and kind of destroy any of your melee. There are some cleaves there, but nobody goes down, and they get to move on to the actual spider pull.
So this probably sounds a bit dumb, right? And it probably makes sense, right? So seeing as they haven't killed any bosses, could they not just reset?
They could.
Just start again, just get the guys buffed up again as much as they can.
Technically, they could. And you can see, actually, they're all using Oil of Immolation here. That's just a little bit extra damage. And Ramstein's Lightning Bolts, which are all those lightning bolts going down. All of the mages are AoEing. They are... You can see the AoE taunts also happening here. Nobody dies, so that was really clean. So if they hadn't lost 2 warriors early, this would be a really great start. But so far, it is a decent start. Something that they're probably not happy with, but they're also not disappointed with, per se. Wait, what was your question? I got distracted.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We got it. It was in the rules. You can't reset or something like that. You have to start in 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, you can reset, and we've actually seen guilds do that with their speedruns. Notably, Progress, like we talked about earlier, Progress had a full reset in AQ when they wiped before the boss, and they came back a few days later for their speedrun. So you can do it. It just is very unfortunate for everyone to have to go back, rebuff, and get back in there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that was a... So what killed them right at the start there? Like, the 2 guys. It must be such a... so annoying. Like, I could imagine the comms on that one. There would be probably the sound of a keyboard being slammed or something.
Had to be aggro, but I will be able to check the logs as well. It had to be aggro and just melees. If they got aggro of 2 of those ghouls at one time and there weren't any stuns or disarms, it could be a little bit scary. They also have a second Petri pull that they've done here just to grab these skitterers. The reasoning to do this mainly is that you don't have to wait for like a good patrol of those skitterers. And they did actually grab an extra skitter pack there, which just kind of keeps them safe, because Warcraft Logs does have a trash kill requirement. And sometimes moving into the Farolina Pool, you can miss 1 pack there, and it will actually despawn later after you kill Farolina. So it is a safety thing, and it doesn't cost them really any time at all. So now they're all going to wait here while their paladins go set up the Farolina Pool, or just 1 paladin, it looks like.
Right, and this is was this the big bad pull that caused the horde to wipe earlier, scripted?
This is the big bad pull, and it looks like we'll see if they got everything. The paladin wants to have grabbed everything down here. So they all want to stay out of combat and out of range, and it does actually look like they have 2 paladins doing it, and that's standard to be able to pull everything together. And then you can see this pull timer up on the screen. He's actually going to be spamming his macro that is used here. This is actually a weak aura, so there's no error or no room for human error, because it won't allow you to use the ability to use your sappers until the timer goes down.
Wow.
So slams goes down again. That is just him potentially being slightly too close to the mobs, because within that split second, you can instantly die to a melee. So being potentially too close to the mobs, but that was a clean Farolina pull, and losing Slams, who has already died, is not the worst thing for that to happen to them.
So he stood on a barrel, right? And the spiders were like bugging out.
Yeah, so it's actually that left barrel, or that right barrel in the middle there on the screen, is the one that if you jump on top of that and use your petrification flask, it'll actually group up the mobs a lot tighter than if you were to just grab them and petri yourself, because then they would all just get a full circle around you. So if you're on that barrel, they'll actually all group up on one side, and it makes it easier for you to do that pull in a more safe manner.
Interesting. That's really I don't know how they figured this stuff out. It's really cool. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, like, I don't know how long would pools like that been around for? You know, have they kind of discovered this recently with like some of these pools, obviously like within the last like couple months of Naxx being out, or these ones that have been around for a while? Like you said, I think with the was it the Gothic pool, the one with the paladin?
Yeah.
That was kind of a relatively new tactic, right?
Yes, the Gothic pull, it became kind of popularized in the last circus, so the last Darkmoon Fair. And here we're actually seeing some people use Masterwork target dummies so that they don't have to use an AoE taunt rotation. That's basically a target dummy just goes out and AoE taunts all of the mobs. It takes a second to die, and it gives people extra time to not die, basically. So it's just kind of a little bit of protection there for safety. But these pulls, all of them have to be theory crafted in the last couple months. Pretty much luckily we do have the PTR, and guilds can go in there and practice different things, because that definitely does increase innovation, and it makes it a lot more forgiving for them to be able to practice different strategies. Here, they're kind of unlucky. There is a patrol of those big green spiders, as you can see. Will be interesting to see if they do get a distract and run through before they pull. There they are. So they did get them. They went for a distract, most likely from the rogues, to run through. It's not really a scary thing here as long as somebody picks them up. It doesn't actually hurt the raid by any means, and it also doesn't really cost very much time in the grand scheme of things, potentially a few seconds.
So one thing that happens in the Race to World First on retail is that sometimes they'll have some secret strat, right? Some super secret strat, and they won't stream it. Is that something that happens in the speedrun community ever?
That is actually definitely something that happens in the speedrun community. Progress, that got the world first, the Race to World First of Naxxramas here, actually did a strategy where they went into this little goo on the side and swam through from one wing to another wing. And so that was actually banned because of the trash requirements, but they used, like, before Warcraft logs released their trash requirements, the idea for time saving was more of skipping things. And then now with the trash requirements, the innovation shifts towards how much can you pull, how fast, how can you do larger pulls, and how fast. So being more efficient in killing things instead of just trying to get around pulling things. So it is definitely a thing. We've also seen some guilds will make sure that their logs aren't uploaded from the, there's some private logs, or they won't stream some runs, definitely won't stream some practices, but eventually every circus, we do see some of the strategies come out to play.
Right. So for the chat, I guess, and I guess for my sake, so the circus, the circus kind of reference is the Darkmoon Fair, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So the Darkmoon Fair, yeah, the Darkmoon Fair buff is 10% extra damage for everybody, which is massive at this time. It is huge for pretty much everyone. So you fully rely on your speedruns being revolving around getting this buff. Technically, you can run 3 raid runs during you getting this buff. It's out on the second or the first Monday after the first Friday of every month. I know that's a little bit confusing. And on NA, you have that day to do a run before the Tuesday reset. And on EU, you have 2 days to do the run before the Wednesday reset. And then you can do your next run during the normal raid times. And after you do that, you will get the buff one more time and stay raid logged, which is something a lot of people don't like about World of Warcraft Classic, is your character can just be in buff jail, raid logged until your guild does another run.
Yeah, that is a bit annoying, I guess. I guess that's an issue with the world buff kind of meta, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah, especially if it's timed like this. Moving into this wing, we're actually seeing them just pull straight forward. I would anticipate they're just going to move right into the boss. Some guilds, like we saw earlier, stopped here and actually would eat and get a little bit more health back up, but they're just moving straight into the boss. And you're actually seeing him put on a brilliant mana or brilliant wizard oil there. And that's kind of something you don't see as often in these speedruns, where they will use a normal wizard oil until later, just because it does cost a little bit of time. And someone also did die here.
Big
Probably
scoop.
from over aggroing at the very beginning. Big Scoop is down, and that is from pretty much just attacking the boss as the main tank got probably a Bloodthirst parry and a Heroic Strike parry.
Yeah, I guess it's just like a small little mistake here and there, isn't it? But you know, the more they do it, the more oiled machine it gets. I guess do they always take the full like composition, like they're always the same group of guys, like same 40?
Not every time, but they try to. You try to keep the same group together so that you can practice and get used to everything together. There is another death there. Noth does a blink, and when he does his blink, it is a full threat drop, and if mages still have ignite up, or if anyone hits the boss right away, they can get threat right before the boss actually goes back to the main tank, or the main tank can get threat again. That is what happened there. We actually saw from this POV a bop go out, so that the mage couldn't die since he had aggro for a second. So, and there's also a weak aura that you can see on that left side, meaning it's just showing that he's using the dagger from Maradon. There's a dagger you can farm from Maradon Princess that renews mana on casts. Not every cast. I don't know the exact.
That's the epic one, right?
Yeah, the epic one, Blade of Eternal Darkness. But it is insane for AoE pulls because you pretty much have infinite mana. So in a speedrun like this, it is just extremely useful here.
So one thing I was kind of curious about, just roughly, I guess, like how much gold do these guys spend for a speedrun? Roughly, would you know?
Roughly, it can be very expensive. It can be very expensive. Feels bad for these guys. If you get teleported here on Heigen, you pretty much are just out of the fight. You don't even think about it. It can be very expensive. You have to get all of your consumes. You have to get your flasks on some servers that are a little bit more hectic, like Firemaw or Gehennis. You have to have a flask of petrification just to get the Dark Moon Fair buff. So just if you want to get your buffs, you might actually need Flask of Petrification. So there is that. And then you also do need a normal flask, which are going down in price now that TBC has been announced. But we are seeing the second guild is now going also. Perfect. And going straight into Abomination Quarter. So they're going straight towards Patchwork first, instead of going into Spider, which is the standard pull rotation in the top speedruns right now.
Right, so on the right-hand side now, we got Turbo Bus, right?
Yes.
Fantastic.
And their composition looks like 3 hunters. Turbo Bus with 3 hunters and 2, maybe 3 warlocks. Which is not your 4 warlocks potentially, not your standard speedrun composition. But we're going to see how it pans out for them. That just means less warriors. Every time you swap in any other class, it means 1 less warrior. And warriors, again, are just the kings of Classic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every single top guild on the Warcraft logs list just stacked with warriors. But as I mentioned before, I mean, Turbobus are running, I don't know if they're running it in this composition, actually, but the Shadow Priest, I'm very curious about whether or not, like, you know, what sort of damage they're pulling out, and what would be any particular reason to bring the Shadow Priest, or is it just kind of like, yeah, you can come along?
There isn't really a good reason to bring a Shadow Priest. They don't have the most optimal DPS in World of Warcraft Classic, and they also don't have insane mana management. So bringing a Shadow Priest is not generally something that's highly suggested. You can even see just the priest in this group here on the right side is basically 2% mana. And the hunter himself is also out of mana, and the hunter needs to be pulling. Like, this pull should have happened on the right side. That was about 3 seconds slow there. They should have just all ran in and grabbed it, but they actually ended up waiting, potentially because of those mana issues.
Mm-hmm. It's I mean, looking at Rise now, they are blasting. They're on Lotheb at 15 minutes into the run, and they're just about to take him down as well. That is insane. I would love to get a comparison to the who we saw earlier. God, I've forgotten the name now. Crikey, it was Practice, right? That was it.
Praxis, yeah. I think Rise DPS output seems to be a lot higher. Rise is pretty much just pumping. They do have 3 people logged out here, and those are, again, just not to get the debuff. I think 1 person may have died earlier. So, and then they left a Spore alive for their biggest pumper warriors to grab for this next trash pull. So now everybody's going to log back in. It was actually, it looks like 3 priests logged out so that they have healers for moving into the military wing and the military quarter. So here, there's only 3 people that can really do any healing. In some guilds, we will see Diamond Flash sets being used up top so that warriors can heal themselves with that Diamond Flash set. But in most guilds, you don't really have time to swap to that. And it would be a big DPS loss on Lotheb to have it queued up and not be using it.
Right. Interesting. I mean, I guess we'll get the timer for the for Turbo Bus very shortly to see how they're doing on this one. But yeah, I mean, just looking at Rise on the left hand side there, just comparatively to the run we saw earlier, it's so crazy the difference. Like, it's I guess that's why they're fifth in the world, I suppose. But so I know you mentioned this before, like off the stream. Do you think we're going to see a world record run at this event?
At this current pace, I would say Rise is slightly behind, but I think that means that their second run has to be really, really close. They could just pick things up even more. It's a little bit of a snowball effect losing those warriors earlier. So they've lost 3 warriors already, and they're 18 minutes into the run. They're slightly behind their last split, but they could definitely put up a really, really strong time. The world record would be from a second run. We'll have to see. Maybe I'm off. Maybe they're gonna pull off something crazy and get the world record here. If Salad Bakers has a clean run, their pacing currently of their practice runs is around 49 minutes, which would be the world record.
49 minutes. That is insane. That's absolutely insane for a full Nax clear. Is absolutely nuts to me. I mean, looking at the timer on the left hand side, like some of these bosses going down in like what 38 seconds. Like what?
That's the Max we wanted earlier in the practice run.
Right.
Unfortunately, it took them a little bit longer there. And on the right side, we are seeing that they had a clean patchwork, which is nice to see. Especially if you're going to start with patchwork, you don't want anything to go wrong early. And so far, I do not believe there have been deaths over there.
It doesn't look like it, I don't think. Are we going to see this crazy pull again on the Rise side?
Oh, guaranteed. They have to pull these 3 captains. So this Pat right here, or Cavaliers, they have to pull these 3 before they go in and set up for the other pull. And you'll see them all turn around right here to the left. And now they'll go this way. The Paladin will go off to the right to set up the other pull. And the rest of the group will just move on here. This actually was a really clean pull from the Hunter to grab the second Cavalier pack. Basically, that's like what I was mentioning earlier. Hunter pulling can change the pace of everything. And if the pace is done well, then it will pretty much save or make or break a run. And we can see that the Paladin is off in the distance. Everyone's here gonna line of sight and just wait.
Here he comes.
Paladin is bubbled, and let's see if they can pull this off clean. The lips are used from everyone. There was one Ramseen's lightning bolt, and those are the sappers. It was clean, beautiful execution there from Rise.
Nobody went down.
That was really, really nice.
And his game handled it. It didn't turn into a slideshow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we have a timer on Turbo Bus.
Here we go. Turbo Bus with a 1 minute and 58 second patchwork, which is a pretty decent patchwork. It is kind of slow, especially with full world buffs that early, but also their raid composition is not the exact same. They do have those extra warlocks, which are making them have a little bit less single target DPS. Although they are able to. Sorry, on the left side, Rise, I thought that somebody just lost aggro. If you lose aggro for a second on Resuvius, then somebody's gonna die. And I thought that somebody actually just dropped the mind control, but it looks like they're having a clean Resuvius. This is one of the scarier fights because if one thing goes wrong, you're dead, because all of the melee just already used their lips. So usually if something goes wrong, in most runs, you would use a limited invulnerability potion so that the boss just couldn't target you and couldn't kill you. But it looks like everything went well there for them. And then they get a double axe pull here, which is the scarier of the pulls, which you can technically fish for. But if you're fishing for a raid ID by entering into the instance and looking for a raid ID, this isn't really what you want to look for. You want to look for a better ID in the Patchwork Wing or in the A-Bomb Wing so that you can just move forward faster and not have to worry about getting knocked up.
So that's just kind of like the it's kind of RNG in regards to like how they spawn or something, or
Yeah, so fishing became very popular. It was popular in BWL and Blackwing Lair with a macro that told you what the mobs were gonna do, so what the abilities some of the mobs were gonna do. And because there's RNG in that aspect of randomly your ID will have better ones or worse ones, in AQ, pretty famously, Salad Bakers had to postpone a raid for almost a week because they fished for over 80,000 or 800,000, something insane, different raid IDs. They just spent days and days and days trying to find raid IDs, which I'm very glad isn't really the same meta in Naxxramas. Here, getting frozen there is a little bit unfortunate. Some guilds will see people getting dispelled, but some guilds will also just have their melee use Moist Towelette. We're luckily looking at Koda's POV, so we can see a rogue just sprint, so you don't have to worry about anything. But getting frozen there just does lose a little bit of time, and the hunter has already jumped through the gate. As you can see, he's past the gate there on the left side.
how does he get through the gate?
You can glitch jump in between the bars on the right or left side and the wall. And it's actually a little bit, it's not the easiest jump. It's not like necessarily very hard, but you do have to get used to it if you want to do it very consistently. We've seen some speedruns where some hunters will not be able to do it for a while. It's just, you have to jump in the exact right spot. And if you do it well, you can just get right through, or it could take you a few tries.
Right. It's not like let's say it's, I don't know, like a dwarf hunter, right? The dwarf hunter could still do it, right? It's not like a specific race or anything like that. It needs to be fit through the gap.
Yeah, any hunter can do it. The only characters that have like a larger hitbox, I think, is just Tauren, so that they probably wouldn't be able to. But Tauren can't be a hunter in Classic, so every character can do it. Although you don't actually see dwarf hunters too often. But that's actually something that I haven't thought about, because you never see a dwarf hunter.
You got to try it. Go on the PTR.
Yeah.
So are they going with the same strat as...
They are. You can see the paladin through the gate. So as long as the paladin doesn't heal himself. One thing that could happen, if the paladin does take damage, a priest in his group could use Prayer of Healing, just any AoE healing, and heal up the paladin. The paladin healing himself to get aggro would pretty much cause the wipe that we saw earlier. Apparently, you can also use a soul stone so that if the paladin does need to die, he can instantly accept the soul stone, and it batches so that it doesn't count as nobody being there on that side, and he'll be back alive.
Right. So the interesting thing here, I guess they're going for Thaddeus first, right? But Thaddeus had that debuff, so what would be the reasoning for them to go into the Abomination Wing first?
Oh, Taurens can be hunters.
Yeah.
You never see that either,
The
dude.
chat went crazy,
You never see that either, dude. When is there a Tauren hunter? That's so funny. Duh.
It's perfect. But yeah, so what's the reason for them for going to the Abomination Wing first? They just
there's not really. Yeah, I don't know. Usually it could be to use Thaddeus debuff time right here. They could send a group into whatever their next wing is, the positive side through, and go into their next wing, but it's a little bit of a risky play. They might actually end up waiting out the debuff, which does cost time. It's a safer thing to do than run into Saffron's room, but it's just a downtime. There's nothing being done there if you're not moving on into the next wing. And if you're moving on into the next wing, you only have half of your raid anyways, and that half of the raid has to split up before the end of the debuff counter goes off.
And how long is the debuff?
The debuff is 1 minute, so like the polarity shift, it's 1 minute every time he does it. So it's really unfortunate. Like right there was
they got it right at the end.
That was right at the end. Yeah, that's the least fortunate that could possibly happen. So now they have to all wait. Now they pretty much have to wait and just spread out. So that's a whole minute loss on their timer. We're gonna see in we can see some of the health pools go down of other people, but it doesn't look like they're actually pulling anything else. So this is just a full minute of lost time. Anyone that goes down in, yeah, but that was early. I think somebody just moved out of position. Anyone that's going down in the health pool, it just means they're jumping through that poison pool on the ground as well. They did get a castigator there, which is really nice loot drops. But they did still lose somebody, and that did lose time.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So now, I guess with I guess I just got to wait out and go for that. But that's just run out now, so they're just gonna blast on into the next wing. So any idea which wing they're gonna go for next?
I'm not sure. I would anticipate Spider. It looks like they're trying to. Oh, looks like they're going Plague. It looks like they're going Plague unless they run by this. And then Rise actually has finished phase 1 of Gothic and then now finished Gothic. They're using speed items here to move forward. So everyone is either going to use speed boots or potentially potions. Ideally, they've already used other potions or they don't really have potions. And they all are just going to move forward as fast as they can. So with how much they pulled earlier and with how much the hunter pulled, that can dictate how much they can skip later. This was sort of a bad pathing from the gargoyles. They decided to play it safe and kill these gargoyles. But if you have more pulled here in between Four Horsemen and Gothic, you can just move faster on to the next parts of the raid, which is basically just getting to that next boss. And then later, it allows you to skip things as safely as you can.
So with the Warcraft logs rules on trash and things like that, how is that calculated? Do you know? You have to kill every piece of trash, or
it's not every piece of trash. There is actually, you can have weak auras to be able to calculate exactly how many you need to get. You basically need one ghoul pack from every one of the ghoul rooms, and you need one gargoyle pack from every one of the gargoyle rooms. One thing that can get people sometimes is the skitterers, like I mentioned earlier, those little spiders, because a pack of those can disappear as you kill Farolina if you don't pull them on the right, and if you skip the one that Rise did pull earlier. So that is one that can mess people up. We've seen some guilds go for world records and actually miss something. And now they're actually moving on to Four Horsemen, where we will see the cleave come out, like I mentioned earlier. So they're at 30 minutes, moving on to Four Horsemen. Everyone's first attack onto Zaliek, full sapper charges going out. And then they are just going to focus on Thane and Mograine. Bring Thane down to the first shield wall while they're cleaving them, and then start focusing Mograine onto his shield wall. And then vice versa, going back.
I saw when they put the sappers out, there was like one little sapper that like missed or came in a bit later and just popped off on the ground.
The little one that tried.
So I mean, they're on the clock here, aren't this boss? So like, so which one are they going for? So they're going to cleave down those two. What are the other two doing? Are they being cleaved down in the other corner, or?
The other two, you can actually see up into the left-hand corner of the screen that Oro, Sensuality, Spidex, and JWT are out of range of the mage, and that's because they are over fighting Zaliek. So this is Zaliek here. So the warriors, you can see 4 warriors in on Zaliek. You want 4 people. That warrior actually almost ran out, but had to wait for this Holy Wrath, like I mentioned earlier, which was good because he could have potentially killed his mages. And so now the mages are out of range of the boss's Holy Wrath, and other warriors have shifted in, while the warriors that were in here initially have shifted over to go to Blumau or Blumu. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced. But there is 2 horsemen left. Hopefully they can kill this one right there, and now they can just pretty much go finish off Lady Blumau, and they will have it done. Some people have to run away because their stacks have gotten too high. Once you go towards the 4 and 5 mark, that's where it really gets sketchy, but that was a really clean 4 horsemen.
Right. Makes sense. Wow, that went down so quickly. I didn't even realize it died. I blinked and it was gone, and they were suddenly in the next bit.
Yeah, that was the difference between a 1 minute and 30 or 40 second 146, and
the other one was 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 3 earlier, the 340 earlier. So that was very clean. And now they get to, well, not they get to skip, but they've already dealt with one of the Abomination packs, which means that they can have their lip up. So their potion CD, as well as maybe warriors are using their actual PvP trinket so that they don't get stunned here. Because these mobs, the green ones, actually do a stun, an AoE stun, and then they do an AoE cleave, which is a little bit scary. But you can actually kill them before they can even get that ability off. And then we're going to see everybody group up together. Everybody. And one warrior's probably going to get a quick taunt on the Belcher or going to let it run away. And they're going to use things like nifty stopwatch or speed items and target dummies. Right there you can see the target dummies. They're all going to run through. Everyone's going to try to make it all the way through and try to not take damage. This Belcher needs to be brought outside of the group or else there can be deaths here, and the mages need to deal with these little slimes. This is actually very intimidating. Everything is up here together. It looks like they're recovering really well, so it looks like they're fine. A lot of people also used the Gnomergan helmet. So that's actually was intimidating, but incredible pacing. Really, really clean. The Gnomergan helmet is a helmet that drops off the low-level instance, Gnomergan, the low-level dungeon, and it just does an AoE damage of like 150 damage to everyone. You can see that he actually swaps his helmet there. I don't think he used it on the screen, but we did see some of those go out, and it's just added damage to those slimes so that you don't have to run away too much because you're running into that room. In slower runs, you will pull those slimes back towards the entrance of the instance and kite them around, but in faster runs you want to run all the way into this room and just get moving.
So are they just keeping Paper Tigers dead?
Paper Tigers, it looks like he will be running back. He went to ghost form. If you die in one of these positions, you pretty much have to just run back. And here's another spot that I was mentioning where like warriors or mages can be very powerful. We're actually seeing the mages go in and AoE and blow everything up. They can use things like Oil of Immolation, which is just a consumable that does a little bit of extra AoE damage. You don't want to do it while you're already inside of the pull. It's usually popped before you get to the pull because it does reset a GCD or a weapon swing. So a lot of, like, if warriors are all using it, you don't want to run in and do it. And then also the mages and pretty much everyone should be using Stratholme Holy Waters here, which is another consumable from Stratholme, basically like a grenade, but it actually has a 100% spell power coefficient. So for each point of spell power you have, it does one more damage to every one of the mobs it hits. So all of the mages, it is a huge damage boost to have all of the mages do it.
Interesting. It's just so intriguing. Just so, like, these random things, like a helm from Gnomergan. Like, what? That reminds me of like the I think there was like a feral deep like PvP meta with some like random sword from Gnomergan or something like that. Not a sword. I think it was like a dagger, or I don't know what it was. It was some weird thing that I think Sodapoppin was using. That was just strange. It had like a certain amount of charges on it.
Oh yeah, that's also, if you're a feral druid, you have to actually use that. It's manual crowd pummeler.
There you go.
Feral druids have to farm those, and it gives like 30% haste, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on the exact statistics, but it gets 3 charges, and feral druids, especially tanks, have to farm them. And if they're really going in, they enchant all of them, I believe.
I love that.
But ferals, you usually don't see ferals that much. It looks like Rise is going for the 2 tank strategy here as well. Maybe 3. No, there's 3 people with enough HP. So three tanks. Okay. So a little bit of safety there, and we're gonna see how fast they kill Patrick as compared to Turbo Bus, because that is about to go down very soon. You can see that in the bottom, Noth the Plaguebringer was 4 seconds slower for Turbo Bus, but that's pretty much the same time, very close. And then Hygen was another 8 seconds slower currently.
Yeah, I mean, so they're pretty much like 10 minutes apart in total time that they've been doing it. So yeah, 9 bosses down for Rise and 6 down for Turbo Bus. Obviously, the Abomination Wing being already taken down by Turbo Bus. I mean, looking pretty good for Rise though. I mean, realistically, what sort of time do you think we're looking at for a completion here?
For completion, I would say Rise is on pace for a sub 1 hour run. I'm not exactly sure. I'll dive into the logs to see like the exact pace. I want to say an early estimation would be like 57 minutes, but I could be significantly off.
That's pretty specific. That is,
Yeah.
I like it. We'll go with it. 57 minutes. That sounds good to me. That's your
Things are
final
going
plan.
pretty well. They're in their final wing. They're at 37 minutes actually. It's going pretty well, but also a lot of people have died. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean they've had what 6 total deaths. They've got another death that's just gone out as well at this point. So probably not their. No, not the slow slimes. Keep an eye out for those. The I think it's gonna be interesting to see how this goes down. But you know, as I said before, like comparing it to the run we had earlier on, like it's night and day the difference.
Yeah, significant improvement. Everything is going very smooth for Rise. They've had some deaths, but those are just very like here and there deaths, nothing that has gone catastrophically awry. And they will jump across. Actually, it looks like Coda actually dipped into the poison here, even though he sprinted, which is a little bit unfortunate. But that's fine. And he'll probably move. Oh, he's going to be clicking here to help the summon. So now they're moving forward. Grabulus is a pull that can be a little bit scary for it. It shouldn't be scary. It's a very simple fight, but sometimes little things can go wrong. Actually, the poison that he releases or puts out on the ground, it kind of works in a cylinder that goes upwards as well, vertically as well. So if you're kiting him up the stairs, you could have a poison drop below the stairs or the ramp, and it will still actually do damage to you when you're up top.
Wow, so that's kind of like a bug, right?
I don't know if it's exactly a bug,
classic issue,
but yeah, it's something that most people didn't expect.
Right.
And we're seeing Turbo Bus on the right side is now they're actually going to Spiderwing last. Turbo Bus on the right side is going into Death Nightwing right now. And their Loatheb was 2 minutes and 14 seconds compared to Rise. And their Loatheb was actually quite a bit shorter than or longer than Rise's, but that makes sense. Warlocks don't have a higher scaling with damage potential, getting those crits. And the mages are kind of up there. But right at the bottom, we can see the top 20 damage dealers from Patchwork on both fights. Here we have Diva at 1700. So 1700 DPS. It's almost actually very close of both of these guilds on both sides. Neither of them had anything too much more ridiculous, but this is what we were talking about earlier, a little bit more of what you expect. The 1700 DPS range is a very solid DPS for this fight.
Yeah, it's pretty much there. Obviously, they do have different compositions to each other. A lot more warriors on the Rise side for sure. But yeah, I mean, 1700 DPS. Comparing that to what we saw earlier after they Practice lost their world buffs, right? They were down to like 700 max, maybe 800.
Yeah, I think they peaked at 1,000. So it's a huge difference. Once you lose world buffs, you are significantly weaker than you were earlier. So Rise is actually moving on. They've only got 2 bosses left before moving on to the Frostworm lair with Saf and KT. So things are going very clean for Rise. Hopefully everything continues this way. One thing about Gloth here is you can see that the tank is doing more of a backpedal than a full-on kite backwards. And the reasoning to do this is because you don't want to outrange your healers and die. So some tanks initially went to position the boss right away very quickly, but that actually can be a little bit more scary because you can outrange your healers and die. As well, on the left side of the boss, like on his left leg, you can see a lot of people getting feared. If you're underneath the actual door there, you actually don't get feared away. You'll get feared, but you'll just be standing still. So that's something that a lot of guilds don't know about, or a lot of people don't know about, that is really nice for saving time. You don't lose out on that transit time of getting back into the boss.
That's huge, actually. Yeah, especially for the melee there, just kind of stacking up near that door. And I guess you'd just have to tank the boss over there. So we're rolling into Thaddeus now, which is a Squire's favorite fight of the raid, of course. Yeah. So this fight, do you want to? I guess. Well, I was going to say like you could probably tell us what happens during the fight, but I think by the time you've done it, it'll be dead. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, one thing that like is actually pretty interesting that could go awry here is that Stalag, this boss right here on the left side, actually hits extremely hard. So if the tanks aren't paying attention, using greater stone shield potions and things like that, the tanks actually could die pretty much instantly. So this is one of those encounters that, one, of course, you want to kill both of these bosses at the same time, or both of these mini bosses at the same time, but you don't want to underestimate the bosses. If somebody just brain farts and doesn't actually use a greater stone shield potion, they could very easily die.
So he's waiting for the boss. So the that jump, you ever miss it?
I have never missed it. and that is the funniest thing to see happen. And it's happened actually in some of the speedruns, like Onslaught going for world fastest horde run. RIP to Onslaught, no longer a guild, but it honestly, we've seen some main tanks miss the jump, and that's always one of those big ones that feels bad. But I personally never missed it.
So we've got Cute Meatball has gone down, unfortunately, during the fight here. Pretty early on, but yeah, so we're literally going to see them go into this and then straight into Saf from this, right? Like, you blink and you miss it, right?
Yeah,
so
and look at...
So it's half the raid, right? Half the raid go into it and pull the boss, and then the rest come a little bit after.
Yeah, Rise actually does it actually exactly opposite of what most guilds do it. They have their negative side on this entrance side, which has actually probably got to be something that's a little bit confusing for some of their players that play in multiple guilds. But so this negative side is instantly going to go in, and right at 30 seconds, they should like start the encounter. They get their Frost Res gear on, and it looks like they're waiting a little bit. And now they're going to run into the encounter. So now they're all going to run into place. They still need to stay ranged by the end of this debuff. They need to stay ranged by the end of this debuff. The person who's dead most likely won't make it back in time. So they are going to just run this. Oh, and he's in on the fight, so it's fine. Once the encounter is not made, and if you make it in, you can, if you're inside the instance, you can get into Saf's room. It doesn't lock when the encounter starts.
Oh.
So everything was pulled off really clean there. And the tank instantly picks up the boss. The tank is always or almost always going to be picking up the boss from that side behind the boss and trying to have some rage and use an ability, mainly Bloodthirst, because if it hits right as the boss spawns, it can't be parried because you're behind the boss. And that is just always a really good play for any of these bosses that spawn slowly, because the initial parry is potentially one of the scariest things that can happen in these raids. It is, if you get parried on a Bloodthirst and a Heroic Strike, then some of your melee or your warriors can pull aggro. But it looks like Rise is pumping here. The goal for Saffron and these speedruns is to actually have him only do one air phase, which is something we didn't get to witness earlier today, but is something that we definitely are going to see here with Saf already at 62% HP.
So is the air phase on a timer, or is it percentage based?
It is on a timer, and then once you hit 10% HP, he no longer can do an air phase. So you can see these Frost Blasts, most of those were all on the left side, but everyone was able to get behind and heal or be protected. So this was very clean. Nobody died there yet, at least so far. And then you want to watch out for the boss cleaving, which we saw go out right there. And the mage's primary job, not other than DPSing, is to make sure that everybody gets decursed when he puts out a curse. And this curse will do a lot of damage, a lot of shadow damage, but it'll also heal the boss. So the life drain needs to be decursed as soon as it can. Slam's taken a lot of damage, and Big Scoop, both warriors that have lost their world buffs. But everyone's able to get out of this blizzard that spawned on the melee, and then a second one spawned right behind the melee. A little bit unfortunate for RNG for the melee there on this right side. but it looks like, at least so far, everyone's going to be alive. And they're coming up on their record victory time, actually. So this time is actually very close to their record victory time. And Saf is dead. So here, it's really good to have no deaths on Saf, like I mentioned earlier, because they're pretty much stuck in combat. Right now, they're stuck in combat. They just want to get to the middle of KT's room as fast as they can. You can drop combat for a second, get a little bit of drinkage off when they first get to KT's room. But then you just want to all run forward. So this is actually looking very nice for Rise. They're at 47 minutes right now, about to move into KT. Actually, their timer is a lot faster than I anticipated. So they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, you've got at least 5 minutes on that really intense first phase of KT, of course, right? So
yeah, you can expect around 7 minutes to happen on KT. So if they can engage KT, they could have their fastest time, actually. There's 8 deaths currently for Rise, and they could potentially have their fastest time, even with those deaths. It is unfortunate that things happen very early, but on the right side, we can actually see Turbo Bus here, and that is, they're on Gothic doing the pull here, which it looks like is going clean for them so far. It looks like they've also just started it, but nobody dead. So while we watch the phase 1 of KT, we can also see the phase 1 of Gothic while they're doing the big Gothic pulls. Comparatively, Turbo Bus, for their pull or their kill times, is a little bit slower on every fight so far than Rise, but not by too much. Actually, they have a faster Grabulus by 10 seconds, but everything else seems to be pretty much sort of on par or around 10 seconds behind. So Turbo Bus, we should expect them to put up potentially their best time in this run. We'll see how it goes.
So how come, I guess maybe they were a bit slower on like trash and stuff like that? Because it does seem, I mean, looking at the comparisons here, like they've still got probably about, like 6 or so bosses behind them. So they got like 10 minutes on them. So they're probably not going to do 6 bosses in 10 minutes. Like what has kind of slowed them down, I guess, a little bit?
It is most likely their DPS output. Very significantly, Warriors, again, are just so strong on trash especially, but also on bosses. Their DPS, they've lost time 10 seconds on multiple boss fights in this raid. That just adds up, and then it also then means their transit time as they're moving into the next pack or pulling the next pull and killing it. Warriors just kind of blow everything up and steamroll things, where Warlocks have a little bit of a built-up ramp with their damage. They have to cast a Shadow Bolt if they're not just there to toss on a curse before something dies. So Warriors are probably the biggest differentiator right now, and they should have a pretty decent time, though. Their last wing is Spiderwing, which can be about 7 minutes to 10 minutes. So we'll see how quickly they do that. But they first have to get through this Gothic pull as well as Four Horsemen.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their best time that they've recorded on Warcraft logs is 1 hour and 9 minutes. So they're actually looking like they're on pace for a new personal best.
Yeah, I think they are. I think Rise is going to be very close. Rise is going to be very close. I actually don't know.
Close, yeah.
I don't know if they get their record. Here's
so
just posted their time 54
yeah, 54:42 is their record to beat.
It's gonna be it should be very tight. It depends on KT RNG a little bit. If they actually don't get any mind controls, it could be over. They could do it. Losing their Warriors early was really a crutch here. They absolutely would have had this run. They easily would have had a much better time than their other ones if they didn't lose those Warriors early, which we can look at in the logs once things end. Yeah, but it is looking very good for them. They are putting up a very solid time. They are having a very clean run overall. 8 deaths isn't that bad. It's unfortunate that a few of those deaths were Warriors.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we're literally just past the world record run, which is progress, which is 51:36. So really, I mean, they're not that far behind. Like, the absolute best in the world there. But yeah, I mean, as you said, like they had their melee deaths from the Warriors, which definitely was a huge hit to the raid. But they do have another attempt, for the tournament. So they do have another, they can do this again, and they will, potentially get a better time that they can record for the leaderboard.
Yeah, I would definitely expect for Rise to put up another attempt with this Darkmoon Fair, absolutely. And even on the other side for Turbobus is having a really clean raid with 1 death. I would, if they wanted to, I would anticipate the reason why they have so many Warlocks is because they actually have their player base has those Warlocks instead of having a few more Warriors. So potentially with the timing of the raids, sometimes that can happen where somebody can't make a raid and you'll substitute other people. We saw that in Progress's run the other day with some warriors that were not going to be able to make it. So some people had to swap in to bring in Thunder Furies, actually, because you want at least 1 Thunder Fury in the raid because it provides a debuff on the bosses and the targets that reduces their attack speed.
Yeah.
Which is always nice.
Absolutely. Thunder Fury, just an absolute blaster of a weapon. So it looks like we're about 20 or so seconds away from moving into phase 2 of the fight, where we obviously engage KT at 53 minutes here. So they're not going to hit their best, but they're definitely going to be very, very close.
Yeah, 53-30. So they would need an insane KT. Yeah, they need an insane KT to have this. It looks like Sensuality also DC'd, which is just a huge rip. And is that... No, that's the Hunter. Hunters always get me as I'm doing speedrunners reviews. Yeah, the Thane. So it looks like they're going to fight the boss a little bit close. What they need to do, ideally, is most likely pop everything, like every cooldown. It's a thing when you're close to getting your record, it's just go all in, recklessness. Sometimes they'll use items like fish liver oil, which has been seen. It's one-time items that they pretty much are just pushing for everything. I wouldn't anticipate them using them in this run because they're not going for the world record. They're just trying to beat their own time right now. But so far, Kel'Thuzad hasn't even mind controlled. So it's all going really well so far. And no Frost Blast in the melee yet.
Yeah, they have about 12 seconds to beat their best. If KT's at 50%, it's going to be super close. I don't think they're going to get their personal best, but I definitely think they're going to get a extremely good run here from the guys. So there you go. There goes their time there, 54:42, which is their personal best that they had. Had yesterday, right?
Yeah, and it was yesterday. Rise has been putting up very, very competitive, incredible times. Even their Raid 2 times have just been pumping lately. So a really, really strong guild. They were, I believe, NA first for the Race to World first clear. They've just kind of consistently been one of NA's top guilds. And now their competition in North America is Reign. We did see Yikes do a little bit of smack talk earlier, saying that no one in NA could take them out, but they do have competition in Reign, another guild in NA that has been pumping. And we might see a speedrun from Insidious, which used to be Onslaught, as well. Now that would pretty much be like the biggest guilds in NA. So there is the clear. Very, very clean from Rise as we move on over.
Claps in chat, guys. That was an absolute blaster of a run. I think, it would have been I honestly think they would have beat their personal best if they didn't lose those Warriors early on.
Yeah, I think so, 100%. I think they had that, which was, it is always unfortunate to see. It always feels bad to have deaths early on, especially on the very first pull. It's always a rough one to see on the very first pull. So we will look at all of that. But this looks like a very clean Four Horsemen. No deaths on for Four Horsemen. So Turbobus is putting up a very good time as well. 46 minutes. They do have to do Spiderwing still, which is going to be most likely around 8 to 10 minutes. It depends on how quickly they do it and if they actually do big pulls. He has the rogue we're watching right now, Hell Manor, has 4 stacks already. This 5th stack is going to hurt if he doesn't do a greater shadow protection pot, which he's did. Now he needs to run away. You are not going to live on Zaliek for that 6th stack anymore. Though there is 2 deaths now. I did speak a little early, but you like to see the rogue with Thunder Fury. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, get those huge procs in there. That's actually those 3 deaths there. I mean, they only had 1 death before this fight, so they've done pretty well so far, actually.
Yeah, they're doing really well. It's execution wise, this is one of the most incredible runs. Actually, this is a really impressive run where they're now after this fight or before this fight they only had 1 death and they're moving on to Spiderwing. It's going to be interesting to see how well they pull off the actual Spiderwing pulls, and it looks like they're going to have to wait. They do have to wait for the resurrections to go out, so the reses for people to get there. And here, now that you're moving to Spiderwing, you kind of have to wait for the pathing of these little spiders right here. This is actually a good time right here, or they might have to wait again. Okay, good. They're just going to go in. So actually, those little spiders, the skitterers, if it's messed up, which actually happened on Salad Baker's current record time, it could cost you some time waiting for that. It actually was 8 seconds exactly for Salad Bakers where they had to wait for that pat because their spider pull had gotten messed up, and that's exactly how much they missed the world record by.
That's heartbreaking. that is so bad. I think, yeah, I'm going to be very, very curious to see how Salad Bakers do on this event here. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them for sure. It's so cool to see the sappers go out, man. It's like it's the thing of beauty. Like the whole game turns into a PowerPoint slideshow, and everything just dies. It's just absolutely glorious.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite things. It's just the coordination is between all of these guilds. Usually there's a call out for everything they do. The interesting thing though, with us seeing sappers being used here, does mean they most likely are not doing a big Farolina pull because the sappers won't be back off of cooldown, which means they will most likely do the Farolina pull we saw earlier where the hunters will just pull the groups or the packs of the room back to the rest of the raid. So it is a little bit of an unfortunate circumstance that we're not going to see that, but it is a lot safer. And with these few deaths, it does seem like Turbo Bus is taking it safer and just putting up a very solid competitive time.
Yeah, I thought, they're definitely going to beat their, I mean, I think they're about 20 minutes out from their personal best at this point. So I think it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah, they've got 19 minutes. Yeah, I think they do break their current time, which Spiderwing is the shortest of the wings of all wings, although Progress yesterday did plague in like 7 minutes or something ridiculous. Spiderwing should be the shortest of all wings, and they should just be able to blow through. Ideally, the tank would be kiting this boss towards the exit already, which is happening now, but a little bit slow. And people got knocked up. So there's just a little bit more time for transit. You're not seeing speed items being used here, which is something we did see from Rise, where they use speed boots or speed pots, whichever they had, or sprints and such. So that is kind of a thing where a little bit of time can add up.
Right. So we're coming up to that Farolina Pool as well, which is, as you mentioned, is a little bit rough. Or can be a little bit rough, so we'll see how they tackle that one for sure.
Yeah, I would doubt that we'll see a Farolina pull from them, mainly because of their sapper cooldown. I just don't think they'll have it back up, and you need sappers. And then here, as you can see, those skitterers pathing, that is where Rise used a petrification flask just to make sure that they didn't have to sit there and wait for that. So Turbo Bus did just lose probably like 14 plus seconds just on that pull itself, or just waiting for those pats and then pulling that extra pull when they're potentially not going to do the big Farolina pull, which means they didn't really have to pull that extra group of skitterers there on the right.
Right. I would love to see, I know it sounds kind of silly, but in retail, they have like a pretty neat UI for like Mythic Plus, and essentially this is kind of like similar to Mythic Plus, right? You have your trash percentage, you have your boss timers, stuff like that, and your death counters. I would love to see someone make an add-on to like track speed runs. I guess a lot easier to like for the viewers. I guess would be kind of neat.
Yeah, there is some weak auras. I know some Rise players have the weak aura as well that will break down all of your trash splits and the splits of the bosses or quarters. So there are some weak auras. This is going to be a pretty big pull. We're going to see some target dummies, but also hopefully AoE taunt rotations. So hopefully none of the mages die. And clean. There we go. At least so far. So they are still doing some very big pulls, but with that, they did get the left skitterer pack or the right skitterer pack, which means they did pull one extra pack earlier, but there's no real big time loss there. And then now it's mainly waiting on the hunter to pull. So that's actually potentially going to chain pull. No. Okay. Well, they're good. That can be scary. The skitterers in this room can be a little bit scary as they're pathing, but it's easier to pull the acolytes themselves. The skitterers can be scary to pull before you pull these first groups of acolytes. As you'll see, they're just the little spiders that run around the room all the time. And then the hunter pulling this actual next pack, I would say this is a good indicator of where their time differences are. All of their pulls are slightly slower than Rise. So that would add up time-wise pretty significantly over this raid, right? Like right now, the next pull should already be in the raid group.
So what would be the reason for that? They're just like, I don't know, I guess not as confident with their pulls, or what would it be?
Either playing it safe or the hunter. So this is a big pull, a little bit intimidating. And if they had pulled it earlier, they wouldn't have had to deal with this, but it's fine. They do have sappers back up, it looks like. Some people got sappers, and they already are back up in full health. So this is just either the raid lead calling for them to play it safe. I would anticipate that, or the hunter is just pulling at a more moderate pace or a more, I don't have a good word for it, a safer pace.
Yeah. More controlled pace, I guess, instead of just like frantic.
But something we'll see tomorrow, especially like salad bakers. Their hunter puller is Iron Gooch, and he is amazing. None of the above's hunter puller as well, just incredible at always having the next pack pulled in right as the pack is dying, and always pulling the group through the raid group. So he'll shoot something and then run through the raid group so that it gets picked up by all of the warriors, and then run to the next one instantly. It's actually an amazing sight to behold, and it's one of the core aspects of a really, really solid speedrun.
Yeah, and that's why they're number 2 in the world, right? Yeah, by 8 seconds.
Yeah. But their run was a lot sloppier. I think Progress can definitely, both Progress and Salad Bakers can easily beat their current times.
Yeah.
All they have to do is not die.
Yeah, just don't die, forehead.
Yeah, just don't die. That was the big strategy that None of the Above was the king at in AQ speedruns, and that is why None of the Above has the world's record for speedruns in AQ. Because they just didn't die. I mean, they play incredibly well, and like I mentioned, their hunter puller was crazy. Their tanks, all of their players are insane, but they also just didn't die.
It really does make a difference though with the world buffs. Like as soon as you lose like even one person and they lose their world buffs, it's a massive hit to the raid.
Yeah. And it's just, especially if it's early and a melee DPS, it'll just add up to a significant amount of damage throughout the entire raid. Having all of your warriors pump over 1k DPS throughout the entire raid is a huge difference from the raids we saw earlier where the top DPS was around 700 DPS. And that's just every second, 300 damage per every warrior. It really does add up time-wise.
I could imagine. I'm sure you could probably sit there and like work it all out to how much it would be, like how much damage they would have done if they didn't die early on and stuff like that. Like you could really crunch the numbers with that one, but you know,
Yeah, when
Hindsight's
we
a
look at the
beautiful
logs, we're definitely gonna look at Slam, Slams, and compare him to the rest of the warriors in Rise.
thing.
Feels bad for our boy.
He's in the
Um,
chat. Oh man.
Yeah, so he was, but it is just losing buffs really does hurt the whole raid, but and it also feels bad. It also just like it feels demoralizing as the player who loses buffs, especially as a warrior. As a rogue, you can kind of play pretty well. You can hold up your own. Warriors can as well, but they just scale so strongly with world buffs.
And that's why they're just stacked.
Yeah.
Stacked in all of these runs are just so good. I mean, you still, yeah, you could bring a whole group of warriors, but you still need some of the toolkit of some of the other classes. So, like, it's
the rogue is there for exposed armor, so you can go down to one rogue, but your rogue is there for improved exposed armor to bring all of the bosses except for Kel'Thuzad down to 0 armor, which increases the DPS of the raid significantly. The warlock is there for the curse. Curse of Recklessness is huge. And it's actually something that some of the Horde guilds, which I'm hoping we see tomorrow with Senseless, the world record holder for Horde, actually ran 0 casters other than the Warlock. They didn't bring any mages or anything. They should run through here. They should run through here with the padding. They should just grab it and go. Oh, I'm glad they did that. Sometimes you see in the speed runs where they'll wait and it'll be too late, and then the path or the pat will come in, but they hesitated for a second, but they did pull that off pretty well.
right. So they're about 10 minutes off their run.
There
no,
it
spiders.
is. Oh, there it is. So all they had to do was move forward, but it happens. It would be interesting to hear comms in some guilds. You would definitely comms are very entertaining, as I'm sure most of our viewers know, in some guilds, but definitely not a safe thing to be streaming.
Absolutely not when there's 40 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so they're about 10 minutes off their record at this point. So
Yeah,
I mean,
they don't beat their current record anymore. I don't think they beat their current record anymore. It's a huge thing. That's a big difference is pacing. Their pacing has just been as we move over here from Rise. The biggest difference really is pacing. Even with the different composition that they have, they are just playing a lot safer and moving at a slower pace, which makes a huge difference at these world record pace times or these huge like pacing runs. The speedrun pacing changes everything, and that's all reliant on the hunter puller. One good hunter again can change so much, and raid lead. If raid lead allows for you to do everything as fast as you want, sometimes the raid leader will want you to stop pulling. It can put stress on healers if you keep moving forward. So pacing is a big thing that can have a lot of advantages here, and that definitely has cost this run quite a bit of time for TurboBus.
it's just one of those things, isn't it? The more you do it, like the more, you just kind of get that muscle memory, and that kind of, turns into a more, well-oiled machine, I suppose, as, the more runs you do. And as you said, with the PTR, you've essentially got, unlimited attempts at doing it with the PTR. So it's a really helpful tool, I could only imagine.
Yeah, guilds can just run practice raids over and over and pretty much practice even minute things. I would say even my guild, we've gone in to practice that Farolina Pool. It's very easy once you just get the same, everyone gets the weak aura, and you physically can't press the wrong button, right? Like all you need to do is just spam the button and it won't allow it to go off until the weak aura. So that is, there's the vanish used. He does vanish the web spray, so they don't kill my Exna before the web spray, but they also don't bring my Exna down to 30% for the enrage. So at least the rogue, it looks like only the one rogue might have done it, but rogues can vanish that ability. And once the batching goes away, like we were talking about earlier, it does become harder, but it is still doable. You still can vanish the ability. You just need to be perfect on timing it. And I've messed around with having weak auras for timing it, and the cast bar for things like Saffron seem to be a lot more reliable, as well as for that one, just the DBM timer is perfect for the stun there. So if you're looking to vanish that, I personally prefer a DBM timer over any of the weak auras that are out there.
One thing I've noticed he's been doing a lot is swapping his enchants like crazy, like they're nothing. just swapping them out on his weapons.
Yeah, so for Spiderwing, Spiderwing's the one wing in the raid that most of the wing is actually beasts and not undead. So you'll use poisons instead of consecrated sharpening stones, which consecrated sharpening stones are from the event when Nax was being released, and they give you 100 attack power to both weapon, only against undead though. So you can't really get that much use out of them in Spiderwing, but in most of these top speedruns, we'll actually see guilds just run, even though you won't get as much use of them in Spiderwings, because it actually is a time loss to sit and change them. But as you can see, Turbobus actually took their time there to get mana back before pulling Saf, so that he totally had the time to be able to do it. He also swapped it before Anubra Khan, the first boss of Spiderwing, and the first boss is actually the only boss in there that is actually still undead. So it was an interesting choice to swap off that early when they were going to have some downtimes for him to be able to swap later, but better safe than sorry. He's also using Blade Flurry. Oh, I'm so nitpicky. He uses Blade Flurry right before the air phase, which doesn't help for your DPS on the air phase at all, because it's all for your melee attacks, increasing your attack speed. But you do see him still Sinister Striking the boss while the boss is in the air. You don't have to jump to hit the boss. Common misconception here. It actually changes nothing. But
it's for peace of mind.
Yeah. You feel like you're closer to the boss as he's in the air. But at least he was still DPSing there. So the boss is going down at a pretty good pace. It'll be interesting to see if they do get the Saffron down before a second air phase. And they're currently at 1 hour and 4 minutes. So they're doing well. They're doing really well. They just want to get Saf down before a second air phase, which 43 seconds, they actually, and he's at 52%. They should have this. They need to get to 10%.
So I guess from like looking at the rogue POV, you're probably kind of like holding back on backseat gaming, right? You're like looking at it like a hawk.
Well, personally, especially mainly because looking at a rogue, I analyze a lot of rogue raids and rogue cooldowns. So looking at like every little bit of it from a rogue, actually, I think I mentioned this earlier in the EU bout, but a rogue in one of the runs we'll see tomorrow, hopefully from Goosey, Riley actually just got the world's first rogue to do over 1,000 DPS for overall. And so watching that raid, you look at all of the little ways of min-maxing and how he utilizes every cooldown. So then you can watch something, and whenever you see a mistake, it's just so quick to notice. And you're like, no, why did you do that? Like, this guy might almost die. Yep, that guy just died from running too slow.
Oh.
So there's been a couple deaths here on Saffron. Always, like I was talking about earlier, once the third ice block goes out, note if there's any near you. And once the fourth one goes out, start moving. Just start moving. It's better to get behind an ice block than to take the extra damage of... or than to die, right? It's better to spread a little bit of damage than to just be fully dead, because losing someone here on Saf instead of spreading a little bit more damage costs a lot more time, because either they need to run back and get summoned if they die early enough, or you need to resurrect them. And again, you don't drop combat here for quite a while. So instead of everyone just being ready to run straight into the KT encounter as combat drops, now they need to do 5 reses, and have everybody run into KT's room. So that is quite a large time loss.
Yeah, because that run back is pretty rough if they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, you can make the run back, and you can make it in time. Usually you'll try to get summoned then, but this is just... Yeah, it's just unfortunate. That is a time loss. So they're 2 minutes away from their current record from Turbo S, 1 hour and 9 minutes. So luckily, again, they do have a second bout in this. So we haven't seen any guilds yet put up a personal record, but hopefully we will with the runs tomorrow. There are 3 different time slots tomorrow. So we're going to see quite a few runs tomorrow and a lot of very big ones. So hopefully we'll see some of those, but they're still putting up a very good time. 1 hour and 7 minutes, or 1 hour, 7 minutes and 30 seconds as they're moving into KT is still very, very solid.
Yeah, I think, they should be happy with this run for sure, right? I mean, from like what you've seen of this run, is there any like mistakes that you think they've made, like compared to, I don't know, like what they would have done on their best run?
So they've played it very safe in this run, and in their best run, they're bringing 1 more hunter and 1 more warlock. So those 2 classes, it's a nitpicky thing, but it does really add up to swap out anything for warriors. In an ideal world, quote unquote, pretty much everything's there to make the warriors go faster. And then your mages can do your AoE and keep up a big ignite. A very strong mage core can do insane DPS for raids. And it does rely on them all working together to keep that big ignite rolling. But other classes outside of that, especially if they're not like pulling extremely quickly or like there for some sort of specific utility, are technically a little bit of a crutch on the run. And you hate to say it because just play whatever you want, but at this pace or at this level of competition, you kind of do have a defined meta.
Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, as much as, as you said, like, play whatever you want, but that, small percentage of change from that is definitely worth it for sure.
Yeah.
This is the best phase ever, though. God.
Yeah, phase 1 of KT is just hanging out. Is always just hanging out. So, yeah.
You ever seen anyone wipe on it?
I personally haven't, but like I kind of like wish now. I haven't. Has anyone in the chat seen anyone wipe on this?
Yeah. I mean, if you pull too many just because you got bored, maybe, right?
Yeah. But also, I'm actually seeing in the chat that this might be Turbo's Raid 2, actually. So this isn't even Turbo's Raid 1. So they're actually putting up a really good time then for being Raid 2. Yeah, a very, very solid time then for being the second raid. So they're competing with Rise Raid 2. So instead of actually going for this insane time, maybe this will be their fastest time. It would have then been funny if they would have taken on their Raid 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So it really is a 5-minute phase, isn't it? Of just slow, boring NPCs just wandering out, and then you just kill them super quick. They don't even have any mechanics or anything, do they?
The abominations pretty much usually get stunned, as you can see right there from the Hand of Justice, and they can do a lot of damage. Like, they hit pretty hard, but you usually just stun them. On a horde, we usually have rogues. Like, even me as a dagger rogue, I will just Sinister Strike and then Kidney Shot, and then it's dead. They don't live very long. They don't have very much health, and they're not really intimidating. So yeah, nothing is really intimidating in phase 1. The casters are dealing mainly with the Banshees, and also with the little skeletons, so they don't come into the circle. And you can also just have people sit there and shoot them in their downtime as you wait for more of the A-bombs.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I think someone in the chat saying that they're singing the national anthem in the in the comms, but I don't know how true that is. I wouldn't be surprised. Just singing along as they just take all these down slowly.
Right. And we also, again, we do see a Thunder Fury on this rogue. If he did get like a bad chain, it could pull a lot of the groups, like an entire room. Sometimes you'll see hunters actually multi-shot on quote unquote accident and pull the room. it's still not intimidating. You do just go in and kill everything. So it's not like you're going to actually wipe the raid. But pretty much this
spices up a bit.
Yeah, it's something to do. He just used Blade Flurry and Slayer's Crest with a minute left in phase 1. And this is where I get nitpicky again. But I would anticipate KT might be slightly over 2 minutes, so he could potentially get 2 uses of those if he were to have saved them. Because adding your DPS on the Abominations doesn't really help the raid per se. This is a static timer. But let's see.
We've got about 30 seconds left of phase 1, and then we can finally get into an actual fight.
Does anyone in the chat know their fastest time for this raid 2? So is this going to be their record for raid 2? Because if so, then they could very much improve on their time by just pulling quicker, but they did play pretty safe.
Yeah, I guess
124. 124 is their current record.
Oh,
so they're definitely so they're getting it. Yeah.
Unless they wipe.
Oh.
But surely not.
They've got this, I believe.
It's true. That's good though. I mean, that's like knocking like nearly like 10 minutes off it. It's insane.
Yeah, that's actually a very, very solid improvement. It's gonna be interesting to see how long this Kel'Thuzad kill is, and then we will go into the player interview as well as the logs. But this is a really, really solid performance right here from Turbo Bus Raid 2.
And they have record victories in about 2 minutes or so. So curious to see if they hit that. But we will see for sure. But yeah, it looks like everyone's still alive at the moment. Yeah, player interviews. Yeah, we've got player interviews lined up after this run there. See the mind control?
Yes. There's the mind controls. 1 death so far. Not bad. Like, Kel'Thuzad is like the scary thing is right as he MCs people, he might just turn around and kill someone. So it's not too bad at all to have a death. It happens quite often. There's a I think that was the player that was actually DC'd. That is the second death. That's the ghost. So I don't believe there's a second death yet. The Frost Blast was all the way in the back on a Paladin, which is actually... No, it looks like on a hunter. That is really good. You want the Frost Blast to hit your ranged DPS and not your melee. And you also want the Shadow Fissures to be on your ranged DPS as well, because they can just move and continue to DPS. Your melee might have to have actual full-on downtime from attacking the boss, which is a pretty significant time loss. Not significant enough that it would change too much, but they are having a very clean KT so far.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a record victory for them as well.
And there is someone dead to the Shadow Fissure. There it is. Someone just sat there and stood in it. We needed one for the day. One for the day.
T-Po's actually in the chat. All right. Record victory by the lads at Turbo Bus. There we go. There
we go. Turbo Bus, congrats. What drop? Did they get a little Gracil? Really, really good run. Oh, there we go.
A stellar bit of runs coming in from those 2 guilds, guys. I mean, listen, Rise, incredible run. Started off a little bit rocky, but I think all of us here on the casting desk were surprised at the time that they ended up ending with. And then we've got Turbo Bus, Raid 2, who blows away their previous record, although not the time that's going to be competing with Rise here tonight. Still an accomplishment within their own right. I mean, Sarah, takeaways.
Honestly, I think both of these raids were really good. They're improvements per se, definitely from what we've seen so far today. And Turbo Bus Raid 2 moving at a great pace that it's just showing or seeing that raid 2, they could definitely move at a much quicker pace as well. So their raid 2 could easily compete with their raid 1, which I think is just like hats off to raid 2 for that. You love to see that. And then from Rise, they did have some unfortunate circumstances early on with some of the warrior deaths, but they just recovered and just had a very solid run. 54-minute run. It, by all intents and purposes, is an insane run. Even if they didn't beat their other times, they put up a very, very, very solid run.
They certainly did. Mr. GM, what are your takeaways from these 2 runs we just saw this evening?
That Rise run was awesome. Like that was just like textbook. Obviously, they had the early warrior deaths that were a bit unfortunate, but the whole run compared to what we've seen like earlier on today was awesome. Really, just I was enthralled by the whole thing. I thought it was fantastic to watch, and obviously Turbo Bus as well, doing fantastic as their raid 2 with a record time, knocking about 10 minutes off their previous record as well. So that's you'd love to see it. You really do.
Yeah, I mean, you know what they say: progress. As long as you're not degressing, things are good. We've got our leaderboards from this evening as well, with our 2 new guilds putting up their times. Let's go ahead and take a look and see how those times stacked up. So again, keep in mind, Praxis has finished. They did that earlier today. Turbo Bus just finished at 1:15. That's going to be a second place time so far out of the 4 guilds that have run. And then Rise, of course, with that sub 1 hour run, 55 minutes and 17 seconds, just about 35 seconds away from tying their previous best. So very, very exciting times starting to populate our leaderboards, and more to come as more future days of Raid Masters Naxxramas will ensue surely. We're going to hit a short break real quick, guys. We've got some very interesting information being tabulated for you all at home, and when we get back from this quick break, we will show it to you all. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Raid Masters Naxxramas, brought to you by G-Loot, Warcraft Logs, and HyperX. My name is Esquire, joined here by the lovely Mr. GM and Sarth. Guys, what an incredible day it's been. We're almost to the end of day number 1 of many, many days here in these 2 weeks of Raid Masters tournaments. However, we have so much to talk about, but first, we also have a few interviews as well. We've got 2, that's right, not 1, but 2 interviews coming at you. We have first Dread, the GM of Rise, who will be coming in to talk to us, and second, a surprise guest interview.
That's a yikes from me.
That's a yikes for me. Yes, indeed. I believe we have a schedule as well that we might look at while we get that interview up and ready. If we do have that, we'll pop over to it now, and if not, we can just go ahead and talk about it. So we are going to be doing Raid Masters tomorrow, my friends. Tomorrow is going to be another big day of Raid Masters. Some might even say a bigger day. That's right. We're going to be starting earlier, and we're going to have even more guilds that will be running Naxxramas. Tomorrow, we start 2 hours earlier, I believe is what that works out to for the pre-show for the European region, into round number 3 for the European region. A quick break after those 2 guilds are done with the runs, and then into round number 4. A quick break after that, and then a serious break before we hop into the North American round for the evening. So again, that's 3 rounds tomorrow compared to today's 2 rounds. And again, you also don't want to miss that. So make sure that you drop a follow here on the twitch.tv/RaidMasters page, as well as on Twitter at twitter.com/RaidMastersGG. Boys, we've tackled the schedule. We've got that all taken care of. The interview with Dread is now ready, so let's pop on over to our interview and see what Dread might be able to tell us about the pretty dang good run we just saw them put down. Dread, thanks for joining us. Well done on your run. How are you doing?
Pretty good, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, hey, we can hear you. We can hear you. So
Outstanding.
I've got a question for you, Dread. I'm gonna kick it off right now, and then my co-broadcast talent here have a few questions for you as well. But Dread, listen, You might not want to talk about it, but I'm going to make you, and we got to get it off the bat. What happened on the first pull? Okay, we need to know what happened to Plague Wing. We need to know how you had so many warriors die, and if you felt that was a contributing factor to the 35 seconds that you missed your personal best by.
No, I think it absolutely contributed at least like a minute. We would have dominated, went for that. So my latest intel sources are saying that several members from Rain paid off Angelista, one of our main raid lead and our off tank, to not tank X. Like, those traitorous scumbags from Rain, I'm gonna get you. You'll find out soon. But yeah, for real, and that was unfortunate. I mean, Father's Belt is one of our best warriors. Him dying early with slams. Yeah, we lost a minute at least from just those two.
I also was curious, like, moving forward, are you going to employ any different strategies into pretty much, is there anything else you're going to try to innovate in this current circus? I guess that's something you might not be able to talk about, but how much time do you think you can cut off of your current PR with anything you're going to do moving forward?
I think our current tech is probably 52 minutes or better. We just have to execute. We try to innovate, we copy from other guilds, we improve from other guilds, and we try really hard to, look and improving our time every time. But it comes down to, number one, just execution. If we executed perfectly, we would have been 52 tonight. But with some of the strats that Progress, Salad Bakers, and the Chinese they pull, they definitely can. I think a sub 50 is very possible, and our goal, hopefully, get 52, 51, and maybe sub 50 eventually as well.
I was curious. Have you guys been doing it on the PTR? And have you got any better times with the removal of spell batching?
So we've done some PTR, yes, and we definitely have some more copies. So we'll try to PTR more for maybe the next run that we do in a week or two, whenever it is. The spell batching is very different. There are definitely pluses and minuses. One of the minuses, for example, is on the Death Knight captains. When they spin, you better be out, otherwise you might be dead. With the spell batching here on Retail Live, you can get out even if they're swinging the sword. But that's like a negative thing for performance. Whenever they release that patch, it could do a lot of damage.
So, Dread, I have one more question for you. I was going to ask what guild you're gunning for, but that clearly has already been established as Rain. So I'll instead ask, what were the silver linings? Was there anything that you guys did today in your run? We talked about the negative at the beginning of the run, the 3 warrior deaths. Let's talk about the positives. Was there something that you guys did today that maybe you've been practicing that you weren't able to execute on in the past that you were just like, well, there it is. We did it. Let's do that again next run.
So we definitely did some new tech tonight, as opposed to the run we did a few days ago. We started out with Plague. Obviously, it didn't go as planned, but normally that would probably save us some seconds. And in the Resuvius, pre-Resuvius trash, and then stables, we gathered them up, and with the challenge shout lip, we killed it down. That probably saved us a bit of time, and it's safer too. If we execute that, I mean, we did it well tonight. It saved us a bit of time.
Yeah, you can see your. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it was a B- run, but like new tech like that, we pulled off pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys did well. I was going to say, you saw your guildmates in Say Chat with the chat bubbles after you did the Cubby horse pull. Everyone was pretty excited. Some people were shouting expletives and everything like that, just being pretty hype about it. So well done. Hey, Dread, thank you very much for the interview. Good luck to your guild rise as you guys continue throughout the competition over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
So, Mr. GM Sarth, interesting interview. Definitely gave us some insight into Rise and what went well in that run, what didn't go well, and certainly interesting. I mean, do you guys have any takeaways from that, Mr. GM?
Seems like a nice guy. It's interesting, actually. Yeah, his the chat really does not like the PTR, do they? I saw as soon as I mentioned it, they were like started going a bit crazy about it. But why would you not practice? I guess at the end of the day, that's the thing. When you have the opportunity to do so. But yeah, no, I seemed reasonable. I think it was, yeah. That's
Yeah,
pretty much my takeaway.
Definitely. Hey, we've got another interviewee, though, another member of Rise. You guys were asking for it, and we've got him. Yikes from Rise has come to give us a bit of an interview as well. So let's get him on in here, and let's get those questions asked. Never mind. You guys, okay, listen, if you guys are Yikes fans, you're going to have to wait a few more seconds, all right? He's not ready. I have word that he's just getting prepared to enter the channel. So we'll hold off on that for now. Maybe if you have any questions for Yikes yourself in the chat, throw it in there. Maybe Mr. GM or Sarth will be kind enough to forward that question on and get you the deets. If not, then I don't know what to tell you. But no, it was certainly interesting. I mean, Sarth, what are your takeaways when you heard Dread talk about some of the strategies that failed? And especially the time that Dread thought that he could make up from that.
I think that he was being like just very, very honest and very like straightforward. Like they definitely could have shaved off around 2 minutes from that time. Losing those warriors very early, Father's Bell and Slams, two incredible players. So losing both players that early is just unfortunate. And they even called it out. They knew it was the X target, so they know which off tank actually kind of missed picking up their target. So it is unfortunate, but they can obviously improve. Their current strategies do have them putting up pretty much, they could put up like top 3, top 4 in the world. They did already have 4 in the world earlier this week before Tribe went in and beat them. But their strategies, obviously they can have this 52-minute run. And they do know that some of the other innovations from Progress, Salad Bakers, and Noobs will put them at sub 50 if they have a clean run. But really, the name of the game is just having a clean run. And they employed new strategies like the Stables Pull, and they did that better than most guilds do that, especially their first time doing it on the live servers. So that was really, really clean and really well done from Rise overall. If they failed a little bit on execution on random pulls, it did slow them down. But it was really good overall.
It certainly was. And just in time, Yikes is ready. Let's hop on over to the interview room and get into some questions with our good friend Yikes from Rise. Yikes, hey, good run. I believe you were actually participating in the run on an off tank, correct?
Yeah, I was playing as it was easy in the run. But wait, my throat's feeling kind of parched here. I don't know if you could see that.
Backwards.
Like I thought. Oh, it's backwards for you guys. Oh shoot, my bad.
Why don't you just go ahead and tell us what beverage what beverage you're drinking right there?
Well, it tasted like Onslaught's tears. It tasted really good. I was
okay. Well, the shots are fired, I do suppose. Hey, but congratulations, good run. Again, not your personal best for the guild, but certainly still a run, as we talked to Dread, that you guys can find the positives in and move forward with. I got to get your own perspective, though. What were your thoughts when you guys started out? You know, you never want that to happen. You're fully world buffed. Everyone's ready to go, consumed. You start out Plague Wing, and then bam, 3 of your DPS, especially one of your top DPS, is dead.
Yeah, I was super surprised, like, especially Angelisa losing threat on X. That was a big disappointment. I thought it was one of the slimes because we were changing assignments on the slimes from time to time, but it turned out it was the ghoul that costed us those 2 warriors' deaths. And I thought it was maybe something you assigned, but no, it was just an unfortunate circumstance. The entire run was actually smoother than usual, just the beginning was kind of rough on the edges.
Yeah, for execution, outside of that, was there anything you were nervous about going into? I know there's quite a few things that can be a lot more stressful, like you just did the Stables pull for the first time on live, but were there any other pulls or times where you kind of got more nervous?
So, fun fact, actually, the Stables pull, we practiced it for one session. We did one session of practice on it, and I'm surprised we nailed that down perfectly. We had no deaths on that pull. That was extremely perfect. I think we tested something else on a different pull. We tested something, I can't remember, but we had some different tech we tried out, and it worked out really well. But I'm really impressed with the Stables pull we did. It was super clean. The timings on Vesuvius were also really good. Usually we would have to stall sometimes or send a shield wall. Luckily, we didn't have to do that for this one, and we were super lucky with KT. We didn't get MC until the very end.
I don't really have a question. I just can't get over how much the chat memes you, and you're my favorite.
Honestly, I'm probably the I'm like the youngest and the memer of the Rise community. I've hosted many plugs for them. Sometimes I have to massively do something for myself once in a while, but it's all hard reserved, of course, when I have to. I don't like go out my way to do it, but I actually have a really good Patchwork set as well, as I'm reading the chat as well. I'm known for tanking Patchwork on the bosses. I theory craft a lot on specifically Patchwork, and I always build sets on them.
Hey, I've got one more question. Yikes! Before we let you go, you talked about how this might be one of your last circuses with Rise. If you don't mind sharing, what are your plans afterwards? What are you going off and doing?
Well, I was leveling a Horde character, and I was gonna play in a guild called Keep It a Buck for fun, but they weren't gonna get past Karazhan anyway. It was just like for fun. As for TVC, I don't know if I'm gonna play it. I kind of just want to focus on my schoolwork a little bit more. I actually plan to be a teacher in the future, and raiding has helped me gain those public speaking skills a lot, and maybe focus on some internships there.
Yeah, hey, that's awesome, Yikes. Congratulations once again on a good run. Good luck to you and your endeavors after this tournament is over. And hey, that's awesome. Enjoy your beverage and have a wonderful night, my friend.
You too. Have a nice night, everyone.
Okay, a big shout out to Yikes for a stellar interview. Hey, you guys saw it right here. You asked for it here in chat, guys, and you just might get it. It doesn't work for everything, but for some things, it certainly might. Coming up next, though, right now, we've got Sarth's deep dive into the logs from this evening to look a little bit more in depth into what happened.
Yeah, so in the logs, I right now have it pulled up as a comparison so we can look at the two guilds themselves as they went right up against each other, Turbo Bus and Rise. And we can look at the DPS comparisons. Right now, it's personally just on Patchwork. And you can see that the DPS was pretty similar for Patchwork, and the heals, honestly, it was kind of crazy that Rise has one of their druids doing the most healing here. Now, if we go over and look at Rise's logs as I tap over, for overall DPS from Rise, you can see that the top warriors, and this is what you want to see. This is the entire group of top warriors all above 1,000 DPS. But then you go down to Slams and Father's Belt, who died early. 514 DPS, 1.4 million damage done instead of over here 3 million. So losing world buffs can instantly cut your damage in half. And that is just a huge crutch, which, as we were talking with Dreads earlier, that can cost them 2 minutes plus. So all of these warriors that are down here, Big Scoop died early as well. So Father's Belt, Slams, and Big Scoop dying so early was probably the biggest crutch on the raid itself.
And then I mean, I was gonna say Father's Belt is, he's a player who's known for, generally being in that top part of that damage meter list, of that DPS meter list for overall. So kind of crazy to see that happen, and just how massive of a impact world buffs can have.
Yeah, it takes away pretty much everything. I think it's something we're going to see tomorrow as well. Some of these guilds have pretty much a star player, or a lot of guilds have, I've talked about it before, but like a warrior that's consistently one of the strongest, and losing them is very rough. Another thing, though, to talk about really quickly is just how much difference of DPS you have between the Warlocks and Warriors. Warlocks max DPS in most runs is around 500, 600 DPS, when your Warriors are consistently doing 1,000 on overall. So that's just one of the things that slowed down the other run, Turbo Bus, significantly. Even though it was Raid 2, doesn't matter how good your Warlocks are, it's harder for them to do as much DPS, and they literally can't do as much output as a warrior.
Well, there it is. Sar's deep dive once again providing incredible analysis for us. Thank you very much for that, Sar. You truly are a wizard with the Warcraft logs. We've got replays from tonight. Let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at them.
Oh boy. First pull.
Oh, it's about to happen.
And it's the X target, Father's Belt down, slams down right after. Just so unfortunate for the very beginning of the raid. It's the first pull of the entire dungeon. And this is one thing we actually didn't see from Kojad there, but like as a rogue, I would almost always evasion that pull because it's just so scary.
Yeah, that pull is deadly. It's like they said, they thought it was the slimes that ended up killing them, but no, it was actually the ghouls. The slimes are incredibly terrifying during that part of it.
I love that bit.
Yeah, the sapper. One more death for slams there. And then this was actually one of the scariest things in the run. And they pull it off really well. One death there. Just one person moving through a little bit slow. But then again, you see all of these helmets being used, and that's the helmet, like the little lightning that's going out for everyone. Those are the Nomergan helmets, and they're stunning these Belchers. So the Belchers, stunnable, they can deal with them that way, as well as you can fish for the ID to have all of these be Belchers instead of the mobs that are going to knock you up.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we haven't really talked about too much. We talked about strategies in terms of clever pulls, but we haven't really shined too much of a light on these certain items that have that very clever use in the raids. The Nomergan helmet being one of the main ones, and then nifty stopwatches, you name it. But a pretty stellar night of raiding, guys. I'd have to say, pretty impressed by both runs. I mean, both runs certainly incredibly good. Rise almost beating their personal best, and then we have Turbo Bus Raid 2 just dominating their personal best by a margin of almost 10 minutes. I gotta say, we were lucky spectators of World of Warcraft this evening. Let's go ahead and pop over to our total leaderboards now before we close out the end of the evening and see how our guilds shaped up for today. We still have a few, I believe, that need to get posted onto there, but we've got Rise at 55 minutes and 17 seconds, Turbo Bust with 1 hour, 15 minutes and 39 seconds. And then Praxis about 24 minutes behind that at 1 hour and 39 minutes. So although the leaderboards are very underdeveloped after day number 1, there is still a lot of room for the guilds that have not gone yet in their first run to slot themselves in there, and subsequently a bit of opportunity for the guilds that got in today to improve off of their runs. So guys, I mean, overall, I got to ask you, Mr. GM, what were your general thoughts about today's runs? Big takeaways.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I really, I hate to say it, but I think the NA ones were better than the EU. Like, I thought the NA runs were a lot better than the ones that we saw earlier on in the day. So yeah, it was super cool. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow and like beyond to see what these guys do. Like all of these innovative pulls and stuff like that are so interesting to me. Definitely seeing like the Sapper one where he was standing on top of the barrel, like really interesting use of game mechanics there. And I'm looking forward to seeing some like big brain strats coming out that'll just blow my mind, because I did every single one, even if they're not like top of the leaderboard, they're still doing stuff that it's just super interesting and really quite cool to see.
Yeah, I think Rise, even with a good run today really served as a cautionary tale for today's guilds and the guilds running tomorrow. That I mean, hey, even if you're Rise, even if you posted a top 10 world time before, you might have those deaths in the very first pull. You have to keep that mental fortitude strong and push on like they did. Starth, what about you? Takeaways for today?
I think it was a really great start to the circus, a really great start to the week. And tomorrow, I think we just have some of the most incredible guilds running also. Rise put up a really solid time, but they did have a little bit of unfortunate deaths, but they have another run that they can do. And Turbo Bus coming in and really pumping. I think everybody put up a very solid effort, and some guilds may not have gotten the times they wanted yet, but some guilds did absolutely get the time they want. But we also have tomorrow, so we can see if any one of these guilds breaks the world record, and that will be really, really exciting to see pulled off.
It certainly will. And guys, that is pretty much going to do it for our broadcast. But before we go, a few things to talk about real quick. We've got 3 more days of Raid Masters Naxxramas to take place here in this 2-week tournament. 2 days this week and then 1 day next week, where these guilds will be looking to try to beat their best time and beat the best time of everyone else here in this lobby. Make sure that you haven't done so already to hit that Twitter and click that follow button, twitter.com/raidmastersgg, and then over to Twitch, the page you're on right now. Go ahead and hit that follow button as well so you don't miss any of the action. A big shout out to our sponsors, G-Loot, Warcraft Logs, and HyperX for making this event possible. And a big shout out to you at home for coming in and hanging out with us and watching all of the epic action go down. A big shout out as well goes out to our competitors. I mean, guys, hey, rest up. Tomorrow's going to be another big day. We've got 3 time slots that are going to be taken up by 6 or more guilds. So make sure, get some rest, get some snacks, get whatever you need to, get replenished, and find your way back here tomorrow for the next day of Raid Masters Naxxramas. On behalf of myself, Sarth, Mr. GM, we thank you once again, and we will see you tomorrow.